welcome to the Postmodern Art Podcast, a podcast dedicated to giving artists who are wide the world over the platform they deserve. I am your host, Nathan Ragland, and for today's episode, well, this conversation, especially this person that I have for you guys, well, it's truly something. Today's guest is Sean Poole, a jack-of-all-trades artist with a love of indie animation and a gift of musical prowess that shines with every song. Sean is someone that reached out to me about hopping on the podcast, and honestly, was one of the coolest people that I've been able to chat with. I sincerely love the conversation that you guys are about to hear, just because of how cool and laid back, and also how inspired Sean seems to be more than anything else. If you enjoy our guest, please make sure you support him with the links down in the description below. If you enjoyed the podcast, make sure you like, share, subscribe, or follow whatever audio streaming platform you prefer. Leave 5 stars wherever you can. You know I see that, and you know it genuinely warms my heart. If you want to go a little further with that support, may I recommend you check out the merch shop on fourthwall.com. We have an impressive collection of some outstanding designs as done by some amazing artists, including the brand new Pride merch that dropped last month. Yep, even though Pride is over, we still have those designs up, ready for you to rock and show your love today. And look, if all you want is a nice, cool, casual place where you can meet some of the artists that may have hopped on the podcast, or meet other artists that have that same love and passion for this field, may I recommend you check out our Discord server, the Artist Sanctuary. We have an amazing group of some wonderful artists that I love every single time that I see them post something in that server. So if you want to be a part of that community today, check the link in the description below. But now, without further ado, please enjoy the Postmodern Art Podcast. There we go.
Okay.
God, look at you. There you are.
Thanks. There I am.
I love the
nice
I like the nice little setup more than anything. It's the nice little figure.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't normally have it like this, so I did it because they're normally over here, so they weren't visible. So I was like, you know what? Let's get them staring at the camera and stuff.
Yeah, trust me, I know a thing or two about having a few, figures and such that stare right into the camera. More than
yes. That's something I noticed right away from seeing the podcast around. So I like your wall.
Oh yeah, no, this is years of supporting other artists and such, and showcasing what I love, and probably hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. Anyway.
Yeah, we just moved in, so I'm blank walls right now.
For now.
In this area. For now. Yeah, when we moved in here, our previous office was huge, really tall. So this is different. So we can actually flesh this one out. The previous one, it was really hard to, because it was how do you deal with all of that negative space?
Right.
But here, we actually have the ability to do so. It's a normal room.
There you go.
A strange giant room.
I can totally understand where you're coming from. How are you doing today, by the way?
I'm doing well.
That's good.
Doing well. I woke up early today to make sure that I was doing well earlier than normal. I'm a little bit of a late sleeper. So
look, to be fair, I'm somewhat of a late sleeper, but late sleeper for me is 10 o'clock in the morning. So I don't know if that's like that for you.
Yeah.
So.
No, yeah, I have an alarm set every weekday for 9:30, and that's to get my brain starting to roll, and then I'll usually be I don't know, maybe 10:30, 11, somewhere around there.
Well, because of my work, especially, so at my work, my first alarm will either go off at 6:30 or 7:30 in the morning. I don't really get up until either 7 or 8, and then get to work by either 9 or 10 o'clock, depending on how they're feeling and if we need to work X amount of overtime and all that kind of BS. Having an IRL job sucks.
Yeah. I've been trying because I moved out here from Iowa. We're in Ohio now.
Okay.
So I was in the middle of nowhere before for most of my life, and then coming out here, there's actual stuff. But the transition over, I haven't been able to land the occupation. So currently, I'm the stay-at-home boyfriend, and then my boyfriend goes out and and works because he was here before I was.
Okay.
So.
Okay. No, trust me. I once again, I totally understand and I get that mentality more than anything. I have to say this, like, not to this or whatnot. I have a fun story when it comes to at least like Iowa or Ohio or whatnot. So so TipsyJHearts, the one that helps me out with the podcast a lot, my co-showrunner, as I like to call her or whatnot. Yeah. She could not remember for the life of her that I lived in Georgia for like the longest time. And she thought at one point I lived in Ohio because the thing is, so I've told her before, like, you know, I was actually born in Illinois more than anything else, and not just Illinois, Central Illinois, where there's nothing but cornfields and meth.
Yeah,
which is, to be fair, like at least a good 75% of the Midwest. You could probably attest to that.
Yes, that's the same thing as Iowa.
But, like, I told her that before, and I guess, like, that part of it got lodged in her mind. But then, like, I told her, you know, I forget the exact argument. She thought I lived closer to her because she thought I was in Ohio at one point. When I kept telling her I was in Georgia, she's like, but I remember you talking about cornfields, and I think of Ohio whenever I think of cornfields. I'm like, Ohio's, like, not the last place, but it's not one of the biggest places I think of. I think Iowa. I think Nebraska. I think places like that. I don't think of fucking Ohio. Yeah. I think about I think about the fact that everyone wants to get out of Ohio whenever I think of Ohio.
Yeah. No, a lot of people who pin that kind of Midwest stuff on Ohio don't understand that it's mostly the other places. I mean, I'm sure if you're in the country in Ohio, it will be, but Ohio has 3 major cities. 3. Yeah. Iowa has 1. Mm-hmm. Technically, maybe 2 if you count like Iowa City or like I guess Cedar Rapids, but those are just like your average general city. It's not a major city. The biggest one is Des Moines. So like, yeah, Iowa's nothing. And even if you're in Des Moines, there isn't much. It's huge, but it's not like you're going to some crazy museum stuff going on, etc.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody tours in Iowa, basically, to put it like when there's a big world tour, nobody comes to Des Moines. You either have to go up to Minneapolis or over to Chicago.
Yeah, there you go.
Or hell, even Missouri has more.
Yeah, exactly. Meanwhile, in Ohio, you have Cincinnati, you have Columbus, you have the second worst city in the United States, Cleveland.
Yes.
At least they're not Detroit.
Close though. We're close by. So.
Oh no, obviously. I mean, there's. I think that joke is there for a reason more than anything else. But no, it's just that's why whenever I heard like, oh yeah, no, I'm in Ohio right now, I'm like, ooh, okay, just breathe. Yeah. Although I will say,
we're out here in the bigger city of Columbus, so we don't have like, yeah.
I was gonna say actually,
we're not Cleveland.
No, fair enough. No, I was going to say, actually, when I was a bit younger, I was saying like my teens or whatnot, I actually visited Cincinnati once. My mom had this thing where she worked my mom used to live in Florida working for malls, and like the parent company of the malls that she worked at or whatnot, they recently had gotten like a contract with a mall up in Cincinnati. So we spent during the summer, I went up there for like a week. I spent 90% of the time at that mall because my mom was working, so it's like, it is what it is. But like, I did get a chance to enjoy a little bit of the city. There was like some random festival that was going on or whatnot. I think it was like an Italian Pride or something like that. I remember cannolis being a thing.
Okay.
So, but yeah, no, like it was honestly like a really nice place. Like I did not know what to expect, but like Cincinnati is a really nice place to visit.
When I came out here to Columbus, because I lived in small town Iowa. I didn't live in like Des Moines or anything, and right. I think in my entire life I've been to Des Moines once. So I was just out in small town Iowa for several years. And then last year, moved out to here. And it was actually really impromptu, but wonderful. One of those things that kind of like springs on you, and you kind of have to take that opportunity.
Right.
And so moving out here, the way that the city is... Like, I would only ever get to see in, like, when I went on vacation, maybe to, like, Chicago once or something, like, see these tall buildings and stuff, and I have to be like, I live here. I live here now.
I know the vibe is like literally like day and night from what you would expect more than anything else. Like to give context, like I do live in Georgia, but I live in like essentially bumfuck nowhere Georgia, like country know, and whatnot. Like I went to a high school to where if you weren't in the FFA, the Future Farmers of America, you were one of the weird ones. I was one of the weird ones because I wasn't in FFA. So but like I'm also like an hour and a half, 2 hours drive from Atlanta, which is literally like some people call it like the Empire City of the South, or basically New York of the South more than anything else. And so like it is literally day and night sometimes when you go from like, you know, country nowhere close to Athens, Georgia, which is like a major college town, so you get like a little bit of culture there and whatnot. But like it's different to go from that to big city, traffic everywhere, you know.
It's huge. Yeah, it's a huge jump.
It's a huge jump more than anything else. It's stuff like that reminds me. I just love talking about this. So I went to school for filmmaking, or mass media was the exact like field that they call this. Was like TV, film, all that jazz. That's why I have some audio capacity. That's why I'm able to do a podcast and stuff. But you know, one of the reasons why I decided to do that is because at the time that I went to college, like Georgia was really starting to do their like film incentive and such, trying to get more big studios to come to Georgia and do a lot more films there. That's why if you notice a lot of like big films like Marvel or whatnot, at the end they have the Made in Georgia logo or whatnot. With the peach and all that stuff. And like, you know, if you step back and think about it, like Georgia is honestly like a really good place when it comes to like filming and such. Like, do you want big metropolitan area? Atlanta's got you covered. You want nice, you know, good beachfront or whatnot? You go to the southeast and you go to like Savannah and such. You know, you want big giant mountainous areas? Go up north close to Tennessee. There's like a bunch of mountains you can film up there. Do you want, you know, a nice good country farm town? Go anywhere else in Georgia. There you go. We got you covered on that front. Don't worry about that. I mean,
it's similar, out there, Iowa. There's just, when you get into the country, it's country.
Oh yeah, no, it's to the point where you might hear a banjo or two here and there if you go deep enough.
Which is strange in Iowa, by the way, because we are a northern state. So there's a lot of people who like do this kind of like almost southern culture in Iowa, and I'm like, we aren't. We aren't.
No, I mean, country is country at the end of the day. Like, it doesn't matter.
Country is country.
Country is country. But, like, I love thinking that, like, you're going somewhere up in the Northwest and then, like, you just see, like, a random, like, Confederate flag and you're just thinking, it's like, we're not even close to that.
You will. And you're like, you realize which side of that line we're on? We are 2 states away from Canada.
Yeah.
Like, we are right there.
Look, like, as someone that lives in Georgia, like, trust me, I've seen a good handful of them, to put it nicely or whatnot. So like, and it makes sense because we were one of the states that was in that thing. Iowa, on the other hand, what the fuck?
Iowa, there's no reason for you to be repping Southern pride, dude. You aren't there.
It's like
again, a lot of people do end up moving over to Texas, which is, I guess, the pipeline.
Yeah, I mean, Midwest, pipeline. But I mean, like, that'd be like the same mentality. Me going up to like Wyoming and acting like a big city like rep, like I came straight from New York or whatnot. Like, we're not even remotely close. Like, come on.
No. Please look on a map and know where you are.
Exactly. This is a fun thing for people to tune into when it comes to this podcast and lead right into our conversation. Which
Midwest.
Yeah, Midwest, yay. Or I guess in my case, South, yay.
Yay.
All right, Sean, before we really do get going, I must ask the icebreaker question of the podcast, if I may. Let's say you get to go to a desert island on your own accords. It's just you alone with your thoughts. You get to kick back, relax, breathe, get to truly enjoy yourself for a little bit. With accommodations. I shouldn't say stranded. I should probably say more along the lines of like, personal B&B paradise away from society for a little bit. With all the accommodations and everything. To make sure you don't go completely insane on this island, you can bring one piece of media or one piece of art with you to help with whatever kind of headspace you want on this island. If given this opportunity, what will that one piece be?
One piece of media.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Out of all mediums, so I only have one.
Yep, only one. Only one.
Is there a time period of me being out on this island?
You are there as long as you want to.
As long as I want to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think what I'm going to bring is, perfect for a deserted island. This might be a strange pick, but I try to think efficiently.
Okay.
I have one piece of media. If this counts, this might be a cheat.
I am very loose with the rules, so let's just see what you got.
Does it count if it's specifically a boxed collection, one box?
Oh no, I will absolutely consider that as part of it. So yeah. That box collection is accessible, is perfect.
I'm trying to think. I think for a deserted island, quote unquote, my little island.
Yes.
If I'm there for a little bit, I think I'm gonna go with the paired Beatles Red and Blue albums. So there's a good spread. So I get like little bits of, but specifically the new collection of them with the new remixes.
Interesting.
Because they're very nice.
I was gonna say, like, is there any particular reason why that's the one that you're envisioning that you would love spending time just kind of relaxing to those two or whatnot?
Because you get, like, to be efficient, since I only get one, you get, it's the two of their whole career, essentially.
Right.
And so you get pretty much the hits along the way, from the beginning to end. And so if I feel like a certain vibe change, if I feel like I want to do a little bit more stripped back, I can do early Beatles. If I feel like I want to do something ethereal, I can do a little of the cuts from the Abbey Road section of the Blue album. You know, I can pick and choose around that spread to whatever the vibe feels in that moment. So I have a good collection.
You do got a good collection. Honestly, like that's a very interesting way of looking at it more than anything else. And hell, if I were you, I would see about tossing in the little white album to make it a truly British experience, because the Johnny Rogers, the red, white, and blue. Yeah. You see what I did there.
The White Album is my favorite record of theirs. So if I could throw that in there, deal it. But that would be technically a second form of media if we aren't counting the collection.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've done this before in the past. What if I just expand that a little bit? Instead of just the collection of the red and the blue album, how about just the entire collection of the Beatles discography?
That would be good. That would be good. I'd choose the Beatles discography, or if I was pinned up in that situation of a discography, Radiohead might be pretty good too.
Ooh, you were not the first one to bring up Radiohead on this podcast. I'll be the first to tell you that, so that'd be interesting. But regardless, we'll go with the first answer, at least for this one. The Red and Blue album from the Beatles. That is your answer. You're locking that in.
Yes. I'm locking it in. Red and Blue, specifically the recent remixes.
The recent remixes in particular. That is a fantastic choice, if I do say so myself. And I think that is a wonderful way to start the Postmodern Art Podcast. Welcome, everyone. I am your host, Nathan Ragland. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, or follow whatever audio streaming platform you prefer. You would look fantastic in the merch that we have at the merch shop, fourthwall.com. Link to that is in the description below, especially with the brand new Pride merch that we had just dropped earlier, I guess at this point last month, because this is going to be dropping first Thursday in July. Yeah, a little behind baseball for people that are listening now. And follow us on Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok, and most social media platforms at PostmodArtPod for future updates and guest announcements, including today's guest. He is a musician, singer, songwriter. I wrote musician twice. Director, writer, voice actor, skeleton, and indie animation enthusiast, among several other things. Welcome to the podcast, Sean Poole.
Hey.
Yeah, I just now realized, I'm looking at my intro, I did legit write musician twice, and I
you know what, that works.
There you go. How you doing today, Sean?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
I'm doing fantastic now that we're getting the opportunity to sit down and do this. Like I kind of mentioned before, if I leave that part in or whatnot. But, you know, you were gracious enough to reach out to me and make me more aware of your stuff and realize that I've technically been in your orbit for quite some time because we're in a very specific Discord server together that you just so happen to run. But it's really been great to really dive into your stuff and see more about the art that you yourself like to project out there, whether it be the music stuff or something a little bit more along the lines of, you know, the animation aspect of it that you may have a hand or two in more than anything else. But before we talk about the stuff you're doing nowadays, I want to go back just a little bit. I want to learn more or less the origin story of Sean. What got you interested in art and in particular music in the first place?
Well, for running it back, it would be around, I guess, just my general childhood. My grandparents, specifically my grandparents,
okay,
were kind of an interesting bunch because my grandmother and then my married-in grandfather were very different ages. Mm-hmm. So my grandmother was older, as you'd expect, and then my grandfather was quite young, in his late 20s, early 30s.
Okay.
And he was very into a mixture of like the Beatles stuff and punk stuff and grunge.
Okay.
So I was introduced at the same time the Beatles, the Doors, Nirvana, and acts like Pearl Jam and the like. And so
I figured Radiohead
really
was going to pop up
that.
as part of it as well.
Radiohead came way later, believe it or not.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So I was first introduced, the Beatles and grunge pretty much were that kind of 60s and 90s combination, which is probably pretty apparent in the work I do now.
What?
But I really liked that. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed those two energies. So my grandfather showing me that, and they always had like really old retro stuff. Like they loved older things. They had a big globe that was like an actual it's like sepia tone now because it was so old. Big globe, and I think if I remember correctly, if you opened the globe, it was an alcohol shot glass holder.
Wait, huh? What? Huh?
Yes. So I know this is a bit of a branch from the music thing, but like this gives a bit of the vibe set up. Like, right. It was this big, like a full size globe, but you could turn it and then lift it up and it would open and it would be like a shot glass holder inside.
Right.
And then you could have like a thing of whiskey or whatever. They loved these little compartments. I'll talk about that in a minute, but they loved these little compartments of hiding alcohol around. I don't know. Like it was the Prohibition era. I don't know.
You know what? You say that, that makes sense. Now that you put it like that.
Yeah. So it was that music stuff, and then around when I was 13, I got my first guitar.
Okay.
It was a really, really bad guitar. It was already old and already had scratches, and then when I brought it home, it was an electric guitar. When I brought it home, I strummed it, and 3 strings broke immediately. And I was like, well, and so we got it restrung and everything. That guitar was my introduction to trying to learn electric stuff, and I wish I wasn't so naive at the time, but I was given that and a copy of Pro Tools, but I didn't know how to use it, so I opted for Audacity instead.
Look, we all have to start somewhere when it comes to that little journey or whatnot, and it's not like Audacity is bad, as I say this as I'm recording my vocal audio through Audacity, but I can understand. Again, we all got to start somewhere. We all have that little, like you said, like the electric guitar that the strings broke immediately. We all have that first thing that we look back on as like, God, if it was just anything but that, or if it's like, it's like, I'm glad I used that, but God, I would not give that on my worst enemy, Well,
it's crazy to mention that guitar, because like you'd think that was just my starter guitar,
right?
But I had that guitar for 8 or 9 years. And that was my main guitar. I tried to get a new guitar, and it broke in half. So I ended up back at my first guitar.
Okay, time out. You mean to tell me that you've used that guitar for years, and you got a brand new guitar, and somehow that guitar broke in half? How does that happen?
It was leaned up against something because we were moving stuff around. And it shifted, and it fell, the neck hit the edge of a coffee table and split the neck off. And I was like...
Okay.
And so I was back to the first guitar again, and I used that for so long. I think if you listen to... On my Spotify, the first EP, I guess you'd call it, and then the Something Else record, that is still using that guitar.
That's using that guitar. Okay, wow. That's actually really impressive.
That guitar's so busted up that I took it to a shop, 3 years ago or something, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And I took it in to get it restrung. And the neck, the little fret separators or whatever, were starting to lift off and like hurt my fingers when I was like, can we get those tightened back in? And I gave it to them and they looked at it and they were checking it out and they were trying to set it up and they were like, does this still work? And I was like, yeah. And they said, are you sure? And I was like, yes, it still works. Can we fix it up?
Let me pull up the Spotify and show you the proof.
It works. It works. I promise.
Now the important question, do you still have that guitar?
I do not. Honestly, finally, I don't have it. When I moved here, I didn't have the means to take every guitar with me.
Okay.
And I was like, you know what? I can't keep this thing anymore. This thing has ran its course. And while it's nice for memorabilia, when I'm moving states, it costs more money to bring extra material. Especially the way I moved.
I was gonna say, like, at the very least, like, I would have like just packed in like your car, or however the hell you moved or whatnot, and just kept it as like, you know, like you said, like as a remembrance of like, this is how I got here.
This is a little bit of a spinoff, and I'm ADHD. I'm related to that right now, so I might branch things out.
This is a long form podcast. ADHD is encouraged. Let's go.
Okay. To branch it off, and then I will loop it. I'll loop it back to the music thing.
Okay.
When I moved out here, I didn't move by car. I shipped everything I owned in USPS boxes over here.
Okay.
To my boyfriend's house, and then took a plane over here.
Okay.
So I couldn't take everything. I couldn't take any of my furniture that I had in my room or whatever.
Right.
So I literally packed it up in any box I could find and shipped it out and hoped that nothing got lost in transit, because otherwise I had to ship everything, even my computer. Everything was shipped in the mail, which is kind of ludicrous. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody.
No, of course not.
No, it's kind of insane to do, but it worked out. I have all my stuff.
Yes.
And here I am in Ohio in my second place now, being out here.
Well, there you go. And hey, you're still able to work with the incredible music materials for the music that you are making nowadays. But
yes, luckily a friend of mine, a friend of ours, lent me a guitar to use while I'm out here until I can get a new one. But guitars are unfathomably expensive.
What? Really? No.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
Jesus. I do want to at least take a step back when it comes to kind of the origin story a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I like,
yes,
we already got kind of a hint of like, what was kind of the inspiration for that stuff, the classic like 60s rock or whatnot, as well as like the 90s grunge, which kind of blended together to the music that you are making nowadays or whatnot. But I am curious, when did for you go from like this general love and appreciation and admiration for music and the arts in general to a passion of wanting to make it your career? Like, when did you know, I want to be a musician, or I at least want to be an artist?
I think it was the moment I got that guitar.
Okay.
Because the moment I got that guitar, let me think. I don't think I stopped recording since I got that guitar. Like I recorded something all the time. I had the albums that I have up are far from my first records that I've ever put out on the internet.
Right.
So I, as soon as possible, was trying to figure out what I could do to get music out. I would get like 4-track apps on my phone because then I could record multiple tracks.
Right.
I again upgraded eventually to Audacity, figuring that out. I found the glory day GarageBand. I found GarageBand.
There you go.
And was like, this is gonna be it. And then I lost everything on GarageBand.
No.
And then I had to get it again. And honestly, I'm glad that I lost that because it wasn't very good. But then we started over, but I did it like all the time, all through high school. I found out that it was it became almost a first language.
Okay.
Like being able to write songs and write melody stuff and figure out what I can do with it. But if I had to pinpoint a point where it changed, it would probably be about 6 years ago, where I wanted to make. This is gonna sound a bit daft,
Okay.
but I wanted to make stuff that was good, you
Okay.
know. So I was like, I'm fine with like translating and saying things out, but I started writing things a bit more meticulously and trying to find out ways to phrase it that didn't seem what many of my friends have ridiculed me in a way for deeming it this way, but teenagers notebook lyrics, like they sometimes things look like they're straight from the heart and it doesn't really translate that magically
Right.
or punctually. So about 6 years ago I started like really properly trying to translate everything, and I would say about 5 years ago I got good.
Just in time for a very particular world event to happen. Not,
Yes.
not, not, not that particular. I mean, we all remember 2020 very fondly. I mean, who
Yeah, it
could,
was very good.
yeah, who could ever forget the year that the Kansas City Chiefs won the Super Bowl that year? Something like
Huge.
no,
Big year.
huge year more than anything else. I will say though, like it's really cool to know that like uh, uh, music more or less became like a translator for you, or like you said, more or less became like your first language, like a way for you to truly like express
Yeah.
yourself. Like, is that part of the reason why you felt like you connected with music more than say any other medium? Like, what was it about music in particular that made you like feel the most comfortable with that path and like going forward with that as the way to like, as you say, like to speak to really express yourself?
Because what's interesting is I drew first.
Okay,
I was drawing for, I mean, like everybody as a kid kind of draws, but
right.
I, through high school, through childhood through to high school, I was drawing and I would draw all the time on like tests or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. I'd be drawing and they'd have to come over and be like, you need to not draw a billion things around the edges of your test. You need to do the test. And I'd be like, okay. So it's weird that eventually, music worked its way in, and I think it was not to disregard drawing at all,
Right.
but it was a bit more fun initially because I could sing it and perform it. There was more of a performance to it, and I've always enjoyed entertaining.
Okay.
And for me, like with art, it would be kind of a flash and people could keep it around and put it like on your wall and such, but
But for
it
others, it's
it
like
I
you put it out
couldn't.
there and then it gets lost in the ether after a certain point.
Yeah, you put it out there and it's there, unless I suppose if it's like a movie or etc. But like with
Yeah.
music I could use it again and again and again, and I could perform it in new ways, and I could translate it to different things, and I liked the way that you could build things up, layers, vocal layers, guitar stuff. Even though I was really bad at it at the time, figuring out how the drums and bass worked.
Again, we all got to start
Um,
somewhere.
yeah. And then you could take it with you in a way. I think is what something I also enjoyed. Like you could go on a walk or go through something or etc. And it would be like it would be there and it could translate itself to the moment, without you having to not be in the moment, right? It can soundtrack things.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
So I really enjoyed that, and I think I resonated with that a bit more than drawing, and so it eventually became something I could do every single day
Yeah,
and work at.
and like that's not to discourage drawing in the first place. I mean,
No,
everyone has a different way that they're able to express themselves, and again, you feel a lot more comfortable expressing yourself through the music aspect, whether it be the performative aspect of it or just like the ethereal like experience that goes on when a song is playing that you personally that I imagine you experience anytime you put on those headphones and you listen to like some
yeah,
good Beatles or you listen to some Radiohead or whatever's the
yeah.
hottest thing that you're really like bumping in your ears at that moment, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely it's nice to have something that can kind of actively, without you doing anything, like morph itself
Yes.
to whatever is going on with you. It can mean something different, which, not to sound so like, oh, music can be such an amazing tool, but like it can be. It
Yeah.
can be.
I mean, trust me. I mean, there's a reason why I'm more than happy to bring on musicians on this podcast to talk about how that is a good way for people to really be able to express themselves and really like change a person's mentality or really like showcase what they're able to do. I mean, there's a reason why Tyler the Creator was the first poster I brought on this wall, all right? Like that's like the artist that like speaks to me, and like every single time that like I put on my Spotify playlist, like one of his songs is like within like the first 3 songs that I listen to more than anything else, you know?
Nice.
And like it's really cool, especially hearing for you like how it was able to allow you to express yourself more than anything, more than, you know, drawing or maybe any other art form may have beforehand and such, and really made you feel the most comfortable at the end of the day, especially with like the performative aspect of it. Because who doesn't want that like little dream of like being up on the stage, you know, whether or not they are a musician, but like being out on that stage, performing the song that they love to their heart's content, and having everyone be kind of in a good vibe at the end of the day, you know?
Yeah. It's a big, huge favorite of mine, performing. It's also really scary.
Oh, of course.
So I think it's like a dichotomy.
It always is. Because like, what if no one's in that same headspace? What if no one's in that same vibe? Oh, you could tell almost immediately whenever you start performing, all right? Like...
Yeah, you got to double down at that point. You're already in.
Yeah, you're in there. It's like at this point, like unless they start chucking stuff on the stage, like you're not going away. You're not in this thing anytime soon. So you might as well just go all in there and such. I was gonna ask because you said you loved like the performative aspect. Were you a theater kid or something like that growing up? Like was that an aspect of your life? Okay.
You would think, because I have all of the qualifications for one. But honestly, I didn't do any of those classes or anything in school. I didn't do any extracurriculars. I did school and got out. So, but people were like, you should do like choir because you sing. I was like, I don't want to sing their songs though.
Yeah, no. Look, I was in choir in like, what was it, 4th, 5th grade or whatnot. I only did it for like 1 year when I was young. And I could not stand it because at least the choir that I was a part of or whatnot, they were not basing it on on like what your voice sounded like or whatnot. It's like, well, these are all kids. We're going to have everyone singing essentially Mickey Mouse voices more than anything else. So yeah. We all got to sing like we're doing like this, like this here, da 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 da, instead of like seeing what potential ranges a kid could have or whatnot. So I totally, I got that. I mean, you know, to each their own. Plus, you know, like you said, you grew up in you know, freaking Iowa, like extracurriculars up there. You know, it's not exactly the most glamorous.
Football.
Yeah, it was football or maybe baseball or basketball or whatnot. You know, but obviously we all know the money went to football. Anyways,
yes, it did.
I mean, like, it's really, I think another beautiful thing, especially getting the chance to listen to your music and seeing how much that influenced you, is just kind of the wide range, or like the really interesting range of music that you're able to present with your music more than anything else. Like, how much of that was obviously like the artists that you kind of grew up listening to, and how much of that was like you, as you grew as an artist, just kind of exploring what could potentially be out there and how to potentially express yourself?
It is always a mix of a lot.
Right.
Like, in a way, you know, it kind of, at your core, if you want to like give Sean Poole as a entity, a branding, it does circle around to grunge quite a bit. Oh, yeah. You'll find elements like that here and there. But it's a mix of, I was very closed off initially when I was a child. And so I enjoyed like Beatles, and I enjoyed like Nirvana and stuff. And I didn't listen to a bunch of pop things. I'd listen to things on the radio maybe or whatever. There'd be some that, you know, you wouldn't tell other people you kind of enjoyed, but you did enjoy a little bit of.
Look for me that one song was "Hips Don't Lie" by Shakira. Like there was that time when it came out. And like I was a kid and I could not stop. Like every single time that song came on, I had to tell my mom to turn the radio up because that was my biggest guilty pleasure when I was a kid.
I'd have to like think back, but there was like a few pop things that popped on that I was like, not bad, you know, not bad. But at the time I was like, I'm a grunge emo. I had an emo phase in the whole 9 yards, but
I mean, we were all kids at one point.
yeah. So it was a mix of that, but then when I got older, I met a friend of mine named Rose.
Okay.
And they sort of they got into like diving into music.
Okay.
You know? And so I was like, okay, well, maybe I should explore more things. And so I tried to like really, really just try everything out in terms of listening to a bunch of stuff. And that kind of built the idea and sort of a bit of a mantra in my head. I guess not really much of a mantra because it would have to be a phrase to be a mantra, but an ideology where I don't want to be limited.
There you go.
If I want to do a style, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to try and do it the best I can. Like when I started this stuff, I didn't think of rapping ever.
Right.
I was like, I'm not a rapper. No, I like sing grunge songs. Like I don't do rap stuff. And then around the development of Club Pocket, I got into a bit more stuff that I'd been into rap for a little bit, but I was like, what if I like tried something a bit more, not necessarily just rap, but like club, and tried to incorporate multiple elements into a club vibe. And so I was like, I'm going to try it. And if I'm going to do it, it has to be pretty good. I'm not going to post something that's like, I tried rapping, guys. This is me like trying it a little bit. And I was like, I'm going to go full force and I'm going to do rapping here and there. I'm going to do effects and I'm going to try and make it whatever. And right now, even what we're working on, which I mean, I won't touch on just yet. We could probably touch on in here. Is I'm trying multiple different things from like ska elements to more traditional kind of folksy kind of thing.
Right.
But I just want to be able to do it all. So that kind of like just came from I don't want somebody to expect what the next Sean Poole record is going to be.
Right.
I want it to be like you don't know what it's going to be.
I mean, to be fair, I mean, that was kind of my listening experiences. I really did a deep dive into your stuff, especially with like, you know, your Spotify more than anything else. Like your first two records that you had on there, your EP records or whatnot that you had on there, like you can kind of tell like the similarities. You can tell that, you know, it was definitely rooted in like some of the Beatles stuff, some of the grunge stuff. Like it was definitely there or whatnot. And then you get the Club Pocket. And there's like all sorts of different aspects that you just like went all crazy with. Like there was the club aspect, you know, there was still some of that rock, still some of that Beatles stuff. There was hyperpop in there, which I did not expect, but my God, you killed it. Especially, I'm gonna go ahead and gush about this. Like I was gonna save it a little bit later, but God's Gone. Like
People dropping bombs like the name was kamikaze. I got too much love for all my lovers in the closet. Slipping into negative, I need a new deposit. Gotta live my paper, flipping lanes out my pocket. Got too many thoughts inside my head, I can't remember. Can't make a decision before I choose a bullet trigger.
That is my favorite song in your discography so far. Like,
thank you,
because I'm personally someone that enjoys hyperpop. Like I've had a few people on this podcast that are either big when it comes to hyperpop or have experimented with hyperpop. The most prominent one I can think of is Holiday Kiss, who does a lot of stuff with Left at London, and such. And so like to hear like your take of it or whatnot. Like if I haven't already, I'm putting that on my like quintessential like Spotify playlist because it's that goddamn good. Like. I'll like it leaves me more or less like curious seeing how you're kind of doing it nowadays. But what is the process like for you when it comes to like developing music and developing tracks and stuff like that? How do you go from like, oh, this is an interesting concept, or hey, you know, this genre sounds really cool, to finished product that you put out there into the world?
It depends on the song.
Okay.
So it sometimes I've thought about this like a few times.
Okay.
Because I've talked to people who have like asked a similar question, and I have to like go, well, now I have to think about it, you know, because like when you're doing it, you just kind of like do it.
Yeah, you just
so
go
like,
with
what does make it
you
happen?
just go with the flow that comes to you more than anything else.
Yeah, and sometimes it'll be different. Sometimes I'll say it's a different beast, lyrics and instrumentals.
Absolutely.
They're different monsters, and they have different ways of entering my mind. So with like instrumental stuff, it can be, let me see if I can use a direct example, something like Your God, right? Or even Heavens, they're kind of on Club Pocket.
Right.
They similarly, I find a sound. Sometimes it'll be a sample, sometimes it'll be a little riff, and I'll be like, Okay, I like that. Let's like add some layers to that and then try and build it from there. Most of the time I build the instrumental first, and I don't have any idea how the vocals are going to go.
Right.
Which with Heavens was extremely true because Heavens, I built that sound, built out the drums, blew out the drums because I was like, I really like it going from like to
Yes.
and then it almost was not on the record at all.
Really?
Because I spent so long, I couldn't think of any words. I was like, I can't think of anything that goes over this. And then I was really tired, but couldn't sleep because I have insomnia. And so I was writing a word and then another word, and then it sort of just like went. And the next morning, I realized how the vocal cadence should be on the vocals on the verse.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tried to swallow lightly. I didn't clear my throat. I didn't drink any water because I had a certain roughness in the morning.
Right.
So it's like I'm going right upstairs, right into the office, and I'm recording 3 takes of these vocals. And those are the takes that are used in the final version. Because I was like, I'm exactly rough enough. I'm going to scream this out, this verse thing. And now it can be on the record. Now it can finally be on the album. It was cutting it close to release, like having everything finalized. And then sometimes I work for years on like catching up on something else.
Hey, hey, what's the news? Hey, hey, what's up, USA? Hey, hey, what's the news? I'm in and out, I'm always in the loop. Subjected, I can pass out. Tunnel vision on the AV out. I moved on to everyone. Anything and everything, I'm always catching up.
That one had an instrumental 2.5 years ago. Jesus. And then my friend Rose was like, you should bring that back. And I was like, no, because it's like, it was just one guitar track that's like, and then like the one looping drum that I had found on in a sample pack. All public domain, of course.
Of course.
But yeah.
We're not monsters
so I
here.
Found no. So I was like, no, it's not ready. And then the next year she would be like, oh, what about catching up? And I'd be like, I don't know how to fix it. It's not good. Mm-hmm. And then finally the year of something else, she was like, what about that catching up track again? And I'm like, and then it clicked to me. I was like, wait, I know more about mastering and mixing and stuff. I think I can save this. So I went in, finished the vocals, finished the structure, found a way to make the drums feel a little bit less samey. And then I finally did it. And so like it depends, but they honestly with every song it kind of has its own weird origin. Most of the time it's building up an instrumental.
Right.
And then lyrics, not to ramble for too long, but the lyrics kind of, I feel like they beam from nowhere a lot of the time.
Oh yeah.
And it feels, gosh, sometimes it feels like I didn't write them. Like I'll look back and I'll be like, who wrote that one? So, because they string out, and sometimes I'll be recording stuff, and to me, in the moment, it sounds like I'm just kind of doing the next thing that sounds right. And so I'm like, all right, well, let's say if I'm saying this phrase, what about this one? And I like the vibe of this, and then I look back, and it's a really messed up song. And I'm like, ooh, these things actually do mean something together, and it's a little bit... I could give an example of a song that's not out yet.
Okay.
But it was supposed to, if you know, on something else, the track Hypertune is on there.
Yes.
And there was supposed to be a B-side to a single release of that.
Okay.
And it was going to be called Carbon Copy.
Interesting.
And it's currently being workshopped right now for a bigger project, which remind me later to talk about the bigger project.
We'll definitely talk about that bigger project later.
Yeah. It was this B-side that was supposed to also be electronic.
Okay.
You know, but it was slow and methodical. Mm-hmm. And it had these weird elements that would kind of like sweep out at you. And I was recording the lyrics, just kind of going with the flow. And I finished the demo, stepped back, and I looked at it, and I was like, this song's fucked up. This song is like really messed up. It's like a song about like this guy who is like just a in the lyrics it's I'm a carbon copy of like your common Joe essentially. And so but I'm out to get you, and he's like cancel all your credit cards, and he like traps them in like the basement. And the final, I don't want to get too gross necessarily, but like the final verse I like was trying to, you know, very in the Radiohead spin of like just trying to make these kind of like very punctual visuals. There's like worms involved and like brain and stuff like that and buzzards and shit. And I'm like, he's fucked up. This guy's like messed up. Like, what the hell's wrong with this song?
Just a little messed up.
Just a little messed up. I'm like, oh man. Well, I mean, you know, works though.
If it works, it works. I was gonna say, like, I had a little moment whenever you said that, like, sometimes the words, like, you don't even know where they came from. It's like they get beamed to you or whatnot. It reminds me. Have you listened to the album "To Pimp a Butterfly" by Kendrick Lamar? I've
listened to it twice, not enough for every track to be that I remember, but I definitely need to dive back into that one.
No, is one of if not my absolute favorite albums. It's currently that and Chromacopia that's currently fighting for the top spot of like my favorite album.
Okay.
But one of my favorite things is the last track on there, Mortal Man. Is like you have the actual song that plays, and then after the song ends, it goes into Kendrick reciting the poem that he has been like dispersing throughout the entire album, and then it turns into an interview with him and Tupac, because he found like this old interview that he did with Tupac did with like kids or something like that. I forget exactly what it was, and like he basically like spliced in like his own questions, like, and have Tupac like responding like he was the one having the conversation. It flows so well too, like it's very well done.
That's really cool.
It's really cool. But one of the things that Kendrick had made a point of, like, you know, sometimes when I'm on the stage, like I don't even, or when I'm on the stage or on the mic, like I don't even know what I'm gonna say, and then Tupac responds in this conversation is like, you know, sometimes you don't even know. Sometimes the lyrics aren't even ours. They're like they're our dead homies trying to like, you know, talk to us or whatnot, or trying to reach out more than anything else. So it's like that kind of mentality of like, sometimes the lyrics, like, you don't know where they come from, but like if it feels right, then get it out there, because like, you know, it may not be your own words. Like I said, it could be like the dead homies or whatnot that are trying to reach out and be like, this is how I'm feeling. This is the message that needs to be out there or whatnot. And like, again, like, ironically enough, especially with like the weird one that you were just talking about or whatnot, like, you know, hey, you know, it may not be exactly your words, but you know what, like the message is kind of like something that you're not fully against. Like, you know, especially in today's society, it's very easy to see so many, you know, average Joes out there and like the carbon copies, and if only like something could disrupt that and like make you realize just how fucked up like the world is or whatnot, or XYZ, whatever the message may be whenever the song actually does get released or whatnot. But like it's always interesting, like, because music has always been one of those mediums that amazes me the most and confuses me the most more than anything else, because it's something that I know that if I sit down and listen, I can truly enjoy and appreciate on a million different fronts, with all the different aspects of it, you know, especially like you said, like the different monsters of instrumental versus, you know, lyrical more than anything else. But like any single time I try to put myself into that, or try to like see if I could do some sort of music thing or whatnot, like it doesn't, like, I'm not able to express myself the way that some other people are. That's why I always have a love and admiration for musicians such as yourself, because you're able to find a way to really translate that, really bring that forth into a great coherent sound at the end of the day. And especially for you, the variety of coherent sounds, incredible sounds that you've been able to present throughout your albums or whatnot, whether it be something else or whether it be Club Pocket. Like, I really do love and appreciate, like, not only the expertise that you're able to project with all the different mastering, all the different layering, all the different elements that really shine in certain aspects of it or whatnot, but I love the fact that you're able to do that, and it's not just like a single genre. Like you said, it's not like you're sticking with the Beatles tracks for every single one of them or whatnot. Like, you're experimenting with so much. Like I said, you're experimenting with 60 styles, you know, rock. You're experimenting with 90 styles grunge. You're experimenting with rap, hyperpop. It's gotta be amazing to think of the different ways you're able to translate your emotions, or like translate your feelings into such a wide range of music and styles and such.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like fun. And it's funny to say that because building the elements are not always fun.
Right, obviously.
It's not always fun to you're really chugging at a song and you're like, oh, what do I do to fill out this like section, you know? But then at the end of the day, you know, if it's something really cool, you're like, damn, it's really cool. And it took me a while to actually properly be able to say that, because there was a moment, there's quite a long time where I would kind of undersell myself. I don't want to oversell myself, but I was definitely underselling by being like, yeah, I wrote this thing. I don't know if it's any good. And then other people would be like, whatever. But I realized like part of it as well is you have to be confident in what you're doing.
Yeah.
For other people to be excited. You know, they're not gonna always be, I'm here to lift you up. You know what I mean? They're here for, to be honest, the average Joe is here for good music, right? And something they can relate to in one way or another, or take with them. And so if you're not excited about it, and you're not like selling it like I'm really proud of this, is like something really good, then not as many people are going to be as into it. So I had to learn that as of late, to be like excited about it. And through that was also me reaching out to you and stuff, like find people to talk about music with.
I mean, I was gonna say, like, that's how I am with like this podcast, or that's how I like to see with like, that's how I tell anyone when it comes to any sort of project that they work on or whatnot. To go on a little bit more of a tangent as well, like there was a podcast I listened to a while back with, I forget the guy's name or whatnot, but one of the things that he said is that, you know, he's a live streamer, so like, you know, he'll go in whether it be gaming or talk show or all that kind of stuff, like he'll go on there, and there was a point where like he was looking back on his stuff, he's like, God, who would watch this? And it kind of clicked in his head, like, God, if I can't even watch this, why would anyone else want to watch this more than anything else? So that's why I'm always proud of like this podcast or whatnot. Like I look back at these episodes and I'm like, oh my God, like this conversation is so fun. Like I can't believe like, you know, the guest is able to see, the guest seems comfortable, is having like a really good time more than anything else. And you know, especially with like a conversation like this, like seeing, like you understand obviously there's a struggle when it comes to your craft, but like you said, there's so much fun that comes with being able to do this as well.
And it's like the way that it manifests itself is always good, because it feels like, I don't know necessarily like universally or something, it feels like this thing that flows when it wants to. And so when you're making tracks, you end up making quite a few more than actually makes the cut. And when you just get into that flow of everything working together, like even when maybe it, in theory, on paper, it shouldn't, like Hypertune. Instrumental was made in one night.
Really?
Because I was insomniac and I couldn't sleep, and I was like, I want a hyperpop song. I'm making grunge for this record. Like, what if it was like just something really? And I was inspired by The Garden.
Okay.
And love The Garden. It's a good band from out in California. And so I was like, what if I just do some really explosive, nasty stuff? And then I did all the instrumental. And I went to bed, and then I woke up the next day and was like, all right, what is this? What does the song say? Ended up saying some pretty intense stuff, but just
because just because it's fun doesn't mean that the stuff is necessarily easy to listen to at times for certain
just
reasons.
To clarify for people who are new to me,
right?
It's not all, it's actually very rarely sunshine and like rainbow lyrics, because whether this be a good thing or not, it becomes easier to write. It flows out this kind of darker state, Not everything is necessarily the darkest, but it'll be talking about all aspects of that, and I don't usually plan for it.
Yeah, it's not necessarily all doom and gloom. It's just getting out a lot of trauma and aggression that's been building up in Lord knows how long.
Yeah. There was actually on that note, there was supposed to be a something 3. Club Pocket wasn't supposed to happen at all.
Okay.
So there was supposed to be a third something. It was supposed to be a trilogy.
Okay.
And it was originally going to be extremely dark. There are some songs that were written at that era of preparing something 3. The song opening up was called Mount Y. It was supposed to be the song. Actually, the chorus is More Than You, but I thought I would throw people off so they didn't think it was like a dark song by calling it MT.Y, Mount Y, and being like, oh, it's what, a mountain? What is this? And then they listen through it and they're like, because it was a very challenging to listen to song. And so then what changed is I got into a relationship.
Aww.
And things got better. And so when I was writing something 3, I was like, I don't know, this might be a little intense actually. No, I'm looking back and I'm not in that entirely pit. Not that I'm free of all dark and depression and all that stuff.
I was like, look at society. We're not all free from that pit, okay?
Yeah. But I was at like that lowest pit. So then when you go back up and you're kind of looking back down, you're like, oh, maybe it shouldn't be about this necessarily anymore. Right. And then, honestly, I want to mention this at some point. I think this is a good point too. I am a bit of, I don't know how you say it, like a friendship sponge. I don't know if that makes sense, but with my music, specifically, my friends matter a lot, and people matter a lot.
Right.
Because Club Pocket literally would not have happened at all. It was supposed to be an EP.
Okay.
Of 4 songs, for fun, as like a side thing while I was writing something 3.
Right.
And then one of my friends messed it all up by I was showing them the tracks and they were like, oh, so it's kind of like a story. And I was like, and they were like, oh, it's kind of like a party that gets worse. And I was like, God, it's a better idea than anything I'm working on right now. So I was like, that's actually kind of is. So I started writing more songs, and then I formed a narrative. So the album actually has a narrative over its
the
course.
The little narrative, like, aspects, a little
the talking points.
Yeah, the interludes in between or whatnot, which is a nice touch. If people caught on to that quickly whenever I mentioned To Pimp a Butterfly, like, it has kind of that same mentality going through it or whatnot. So, like, I always love when an album has like a cool flow like that.
Well, because from the get-go, I'll close off the Club Pocket thought. ADHD, get it in order. So, yeah, Club Pocket was supposed to be an EP. Then I wrote several more songs. And actually, my boyfriend helped with some of the visual elements of it. Okay. The stickers that are on the cover art were done by him. There are 2. The characters are DJ Cat and Emo Cat, and they are very representative. And you'll see more of them later this year. Okay. As we that big project I talked about, we'll keep teasing about. So Club Pocket grew because my friends liked it and suggested directions, and like even offhanded comments that occur or in jokes between friends of mine. Right. There's the upsides of that and the downsides of that. Of course. A friend of mine I was upset at a certain point in time, and so there's a couple lyrics on there that were inherently derived from conversations of us having a bit of an argument at the time, and then that resolved. So I had to be like, unfortunately, that's like the best take of the song, and like that's how the song like is. So I was like, hey man, like I'm sorry that sometimes I kind of get things out on songs, and then maybe sometimes they're good and I had to put them out. So like but I'm not mad at you now. Right. It's okay. We've been like friends for like 7 years now, so there's been plenty of times where interactions between the two of us work into songs. And then she goes, yeah, that one's about me, isn't it? And I was like, well,
I mean,
yeah, you know.
Yeah.
Just a little. I mean, well, you know, just a little bit. Just like several lines, maybe the whole song.
The whole song.
But no, like interacting with other people really. There was a point in time a few years ago when I realized that doing music, there's some other people who talk to you about like philosophy and how you should do things, right?
Right.
And I would always kind of keep in mind I'm a fan at heart all the time. And so I've been an obsessive fan with like Gorillaz and with Radiohead, with the Beatles, with Nirvana or whatever. I know way too much. My library, way too big of demos and unreleased material of things like Brockhampton. Like they have 4 or 5 records that aren't anybody can hear because they just shelved them, but they're fantastic songs. Technical Difficulties. Shout out Technical Difficulties. Was a great Brockhampton project that never saw the light of day. But like, I've always loved the fan experience. So whenever I'm making something, I'm making stuff for other people. Like when people are like, you should make stuff for yourself. And I'm like, well, sometimes I'll write like a thing. But to me, honestly, if I wanted to do everything for myself, I just write a diary entry. 'Cause it'd be way easier than writing an entire song and producing it, mixing and mastering it for me than going through all this process and making a record and all this stuff. If I want to do it for myself, I just write it down.
Right.
Or I'd like hear it in my head and be like, hey, that was a good song. Let's move on, you know? So I've always enjoyed entertaining other people over just making something for myself. And it took me a while to realize that can be okay to be an entertainer above just like an insightful, I write things to be like, this one's for me, you know? And so
I'll say, look, everyone gets inspiration from all sorts of different aspects when it comes to life. And for you, it seems like your friends or those that you're close to or whatnot, they're a really good fountain of inspiration for especially the stuff you're doing nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. And even people that I don't know, like new like fans and stuff like that I'm trying to reach out and talk to. The idea is I want it to be good. And I want it to be like really cool. And I want things to be really fleshed out and toying with different ideas. And I'm sure we'll talk about it, but like talking about different ideas, I always have like a third person perspective inherently. I'm like, if I was going to watch this, would I care? If I was going to listen to this, is it interesting the whole way through? And that was like a big thing with Club Pocket and a lot of stuff we're working on right now is that third person perspective, like people listening, like what makes it cool and stand on its own 2 legs and isn't just a direct copy of something else.
Right, absolutely. I mean, trust me,
Pardon the pun.
I wonder what the pun is for. No. No, I mean, like, it's very interesting to have that kind of mentality, but, like, it's also a good mentality to have that kind of third-person perspective, especially hearing all the different aspects and all the different ways you've been able to, like I said, translate those emotions in one form or another, especially how times have changed for you, reflected in, like, the music you've been able to produce or whatnot. It does lead me to this question that I want to ask right off the bat. What, in your entire discography that you have out there, because I know we could talk about the big project in a second, but out of the discography that is out there right now, what has been the most challenging track for you to be able to put out?
The most challenging track that's released. Emphasis on released.
Yes. Because we all know what's been challenging on the new stuff. I mean, we all know how long that...
Yeah, well, even... There's, you know, again, not diving into it, but there have been just thousands of songs that have not seen the light of day over the past, like, several years that some people still... in my circle, they're like, when's that one coming out? And I'm like,
I was gonna
Give
say
it time.
I was gonna say, look, like we all know that there's a lot of musicians out there that have that like hidden library of like of tracks that are just never gonna see the light of day.
Yeah.
I.e. Michael Jackson and Prince having hundreds, if not thousands, of songs that are just never gonna see the light of day.
Forgive me. I'm gonna also look at my Spotify here. Of stuff that's released that was the hardest to work on.
Mm-hmm.
I guess in a way it would be catching up.
Okay.
If you want to talk about time, I guess, because each song kind of brings its own challenge.
Right.
So it's hard to like, there's a story, rather fortunately or unfortunately, for every track. There's a story of why it was the way it was in the final, I mean, I messed up on a release on something else, and that just has to be how it is. I uploaded the wrong one.
Oh.
So one of the tracks on there is not the right, but that's just the one people know now. So, I guess catching up, because it took so long to get it right.
Okay.
And to shout her out again, if it weren't for Rose, I wouldn't have finished that one, because she kept it consistent in my mind. Whenever there was a project being worked on, she'd be like, is that one coming out? And that's not the only one she's like that about. Still like that about a few other songs that she's like, when's that one coming out? And I'm like, but no, I'm thankful for her on that one, giving me the push to finally do it. And I think it's one of the best tracks on the record. Not to like gas myself up, but like I think it's
gas yourself
one of my favorite on the record.
This is the podcast to gas yourself up, okay?
I think it's one of the best on the record. Catching up, and it has a good like fun groove, and we're working on music video stuff for it.
Oh, okay, that's really interesting. Well, I mean, with that in mind, I don't know if that's what you would consider. Like, I know you consider that one of the best off the record, but like just in general from the release discography, what has been your favorite song? Like, it's one of the songs that
my favorite song.
Like, even if you hadn't been the one to make it, like you can go back to it and listen to it every single time because it's just that good of a song.
Oh, that's crazy. Mm-hmm. That's a crazy question. It would probably. It might be a bit of a tie. I think it'd be Your God. Is really fun, and it concreted itself as one of my favorite songs, and a lot of other people's favorite songs, but like my favorite song because of the second verse. Mm-hmm. The I don't want to be the cure to your depression, the way that like flowed.
Yes,
I was like, now it's got some sauce to it, and then it came in with like the little basic, very 2000s riff, but it's like a hyper pop song, but like a 2000s movie road trip song at the same time, something like Wallows would do, but in the vein of like hyper pop. Yeah. And I really enjoyed
if
that
hyperpop
marriage.
was a genre in 2000 instead of 2025.
Yeah. So if it was popping on the radio on some coming of age film,
Yep.
And so I really enjoy Your God. I think that's probably my favorite, tied with Heavens, because Heavens is really fun as well.
Absolutely. No, I mean, honestly, like, I know I said my absolute favorite already, which is just God's Gone or whatnot, but I mean, like, there's several, like, good songs, right? Your discography or whatnot. Space Song is another good one that I just enjoy listening to or whatnot. The Man I'm B, I love that one. And my I also can't get enough of The Club. The what? mainly the title, but like that song,
Okay.
but like the song itself is also a really like good one to just like really go all in with or whatnot. I love so much of that discography. Like I'm a little biased as well. Club Pocket, especially the extended version, is probably my favorite record so far of yours.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, yeah, like still like I do love and appreciate like just the entire discography that you have and how you're able to really like we talked about throughout this entire time, or not really be able to express yourself and really showcase like especially how you're feeling in like certain times and certain parts of your life or whatnot. Like you do a really good job not only projecting that but really doing a good job of make it to where other people can listen to it and they can like instantly recognize it in one form or fashion. Like they can connect to it on so many different waves and understand like just the mentality that you're really putting out there. Like I imagine like especially for you seeing the amount of people that have been able to listen to your stuff and really like find that connection, that's gotta be at least like somewhat rewarding for you to know that even though this is like you, people are able to connect with it and it does in a way like feeling more connected to you than they may have never had beforehand.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of hearing other people's like it's not that like just people being like, "Oh, I like the song," which I enjoy and I appreciate and I always like that. But I love hearing how people interpret things, and how people have taken lyrics or etc. It's a recent addition that I started putting the lyrics on Spotify and stuff before people just had to kind of wing it. And there have been, I'll admit, a couple of times when somebody has misinterpreted a lyric, but it's way better than what it actually is, and it sounds close enough. So I'd be like, actually, that's actually way better. So we're actually gonna run with that being the main lyric because it was kind of silly before. But I enjoy other people's interpretations when people talk about why they like something or how they took something or how they've used it in their life to get through not just dark pits but even like out having fun, you know. The one thing that's really funny is that every album so far has had one track that I get messages asking if I'm all right. There'll always be one track.
I can understand that, especially listen to you. I can see why people are like, do you at least like, do you need a hug or something, homie? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, it started with Song About Life from the first EP.
I try to be myself anymore and takes the cake. When an idiotic accent makes you break down and quake, I'd throw up in the bathroom if someone called me fat. I shame myself relentlessly, but nobody asked. I've crippled my future and ruined all my past. I thought I found a lucky one, but I was just an ass. And a contract and a bloodline keep me posted to the dirt. I'd dig myself a hole if my nails wouldn't hurt. And I run. The hurt's
so from I Have Something Here, I always call it just the first EP, but from that track, it's such a direct one, and it was written very direct. I don't often write that direct. I like writing about stories or people or from this third perspective of somebody who's not quite me. I enjoy writing that way, but sometimes I'll draw out something very direct, and that one was like a nightmare I had from everything that was going on. And so it was something I directly, very physically experienced in my head and put down on paper and on recording and then release and all that stuff, but on paper. And shared it around, was like, here's the album, here's like what we got. People like, I really like Catfish. And then I got some messages that were like, hey, I heard a song about life. Like, are you all right? And I was like, not really, but like I will be.
It's like, there's a reason why I put the song out there, so I can get that out of my system more than anything else. So I mean, like, I'm better, but I still got a long way to go.
I appreciate you asking and recognizing and being like, hey, are you all right? And be like, oh, thank you for noticing. But
thank you for your love and
I'm fine.
consideration.
I'll be okay. Yeah. And then, of course, like something else that was hypertuned. And then I think Club Pocket, it was Cannonball.
Drove in your cannonball, anxiousness and stress. I'm a spotlight on your wall, just leading you to death. I'm a leech sprung on your arm, just bleeding you to death.
That makes sense.
Cannonball's an older one, too. That was
really?
one that
Okay.
I wrote for a different band. And then
Oh.
I finally found a way to make it work, and that was to just blow it the hell out.
Yep.
And just make it really explosive. And I love the lyrics on that one, though. I really am proud of the lyrics on Cannonball.
Oh yeah, I mean, I gotta say, like the lyricism that you're able to weave throughout these different projects or whatnot, like you do a really good job of like including like the good, like, you know, hidden or like underlying stuff or whatnot, but also like making it to where it's just not like, again, jumbled garbage just bleh, being pushed out onto whatever you're putting out there more than anything else. And normally I would ask simply, well, now you got all this stuff out there, what is next? But at this point, you've been teasing a little something, and I feel like now's probably the best time for you to go, maybe not all in depth, but at least like let the people know, like, what is next for Sean Poole? What is this big project that you've been teasing a lot throughout this episode?
So it's kind of hard to pinpoint a word for what it is.
Okay.
I have always been a big fan of music, of course.
Obviously,
if you can't tell. But the other aspects of entertainment. Okay. I've enjoyed visual elements, I've enjoyed voice acting, and I've enjoyed directing and writing.
Which we'll talk about those in a bit as well, don't worry.
Yeah. I've enjoyed doing those things, and so I decided I am going to do all of them. And I've tried that before.
Yeah.
I used to have a virtual band.
Interesting. With
some other people. And that one actually saw like some little cult success. We did live shows with them, with online internet live shows with quite a few people.
Okay.
It was like a pop band,
what was the band called, if I may ask?
It was called H4O.
H4O. The name sounds familiar. I feel like I've heard that at least offhand, but I don't think I've actually heard like the music itself.
Yeah. H4O was a virtual band that kind of started with these two characters, Tom and PB.
Okay.
And they were with, there's another artist, was basically the main artist for that band in the longest run, Seaborg. So they also work on another show that I work on as well, called Midmortis. I'm sure we'll discuss a bit.
Yeah.
So Seaborg was like a main artist. The first artist was an artist called Mia Martian.
Okay.
A friend of mine. And they were the first artists of the band. And then they kind of left the project to do other things. Then Seaborg kind of took over as the main artist. But that was like fun, but it was hard to maintain.
Right.
Obviously, having a team of like people all kind of, I guess, volunteer, but we were all just like doing it for fun. It was a little bit hard to maintain. So eventually it kind of fizzled, and some of those songs are going to work their way over to the Sean Poole catalog being sort of reworked, because I don't want to leave them in an abyss somewhere.
Right.
But the thing about that is that taught me I do love characters. And I did a voice for that band. I didn't do my normal main thing. I did like an accent for that. And so we are plucking my characters, Tom and PB, and putting them in the Sean Poole universe.
Okay.
And so they aren't going to be underutilized, because people really enjoyed Tom and PB. And I don't want them to just be gone, because I enjoyed them too. And also, I worked on that voice for way too long to just let it go.
It's like, God damn it, I put in the time and the effort.
Yeah.
I've had several sessions where my
singing.
throat was killing me in that voice, and I'm not gonna let it go to waste.
I'm not gonna let it go. You singing in another accent and a voice and register, you have to kind of relearn elements and like teach it how to move and flow.
Right.
And so it would be silly, honestly, for me to let that go. And so that voice has come through. Hypertune is done in that accent.
Okay.
The technical hidden song, the like last song on Club Pocket, that's done in the British accent with the acoustic guitar stuck on you. That one is the Tom voice as well. So these are Tom in universe of Sean Poole. These are Tom singing. And I guess that leads us into what the project is, and that is expanding the universe of Sean Poole. So we want it to be this entity. We want it to be a thing and not just like an artist name and whatever. Because I can't be that simple with me. It can't be. I can't just go do the simple thing and then walk away. You know, it has to be bigger. And Club Pocket was just a little taste of what I like to do. Make this narrative, give it a purpose and a reason as to why you would listen to the whole album to get the whole idea.
Yeah.
And so from this point forward, we're working on music videos and the new album, which is the start of sort of a new era. I'd consider Club Pocket the first Sean Poole record. I consider something else, and I have something here as the demo tapes.
Right.
So those songs might see them being utilized again somewhere else, namely things like A Little Paper Letter that are very demo-y. We'll see full realizations pretty soon. But that's what we're doing. We're undertaking the idea of making a bigger sort of universe with these characters through mixed media and the like. Right now we're working on the first thing I can actually talk about because it's the thing that's actually being worked on, which is Cannonball. Cannonball has a music video that we're working on.
Okay.
And to kind of give a taste of what it is, it all takes place in one room.
Interesting.
So it's the camera set up, you see the one room, and what we're going to do is film sort of me sitting on the bed facing the camera, and then we are going to remove the room and recreate it in Blender to be able to change the room how we want it to be and have elements come in and around. And
that's cool.
So that's how the music video is being worked on right now. But like that's these like mixed media elements are kind of part of what we're working on right now. And as kind of shown on Club Pocket, Sean Poole's brand is that Y2K, early 2000s, late 90s, low quality, kind of almost VHS, just like a bad rip quality. And you've seen that kind of on like the YouTube channel has like that.
Yep.
And that's half just for fun and half because I realized it made things a lot easier. I don't always have the best equipment.
Obviously.
And so eventually I found out if I make low quality part of the brand and then make it look really fun, I don't have to break my spine to make low end material bigger and higher quality. I can make it part of everything and people wouldn't think lesser. That YouTube video about Severance, I didn't have a full green screen. I had one that was about this big.
Yep.
You know, it covered my waist up here. I taped it to a wall, put my phone in like the closet across the hallway, and lit myself under with like a lamp, and then edited it to look more like the purple dimension is what I called it. I don't know. And then was like, oh, this like makes it cool. Yeah. Even though if you looked at the behind the scenes, it looked like shit.
I mean, hey, you know, sometimes you are able to do the best work with very limited supplies or whatnot. I mean, for God's sakes, like this whole entire setup, like yeah, my background looks good or whatnot, but when it comes to like the actual setup itself, like I have a cheap webcam that I'm using to film myself right now. I got a ring light that's lighting me up, and that's because my stepmom got for free from reviewing stuff on Amazon or whatnot, and so I was able to get it for free for me, especially around time I was getting it. The only thing that I put a lot more money into is like my microphone, because my microphone is like $100, and that's like the most I've spent when it comes to like a lot of the stuff that isn't a thumbnail or what the fuck I have back here on my wall.
Yeah,
but like the actual like presentation itself, sometimes you can do the best work with very limited supplies. That's how we've gotten like certain projects, certain movies, and certain things out there, like working with the limitations that they have. I mean, the Blair Witch Project, the one that I think of is like the Blair Witch Project. Like they did a lot with the very small budget that they did, and it's considered like a staple for today's horror for a reason,
Yeah, I love that. I mean, limitation, I think, is so necessary. In creativity. I feel like people will, if my options were to the stars. It's like, no, because then if you're put in this little box here and you sort of have to find a way to make the box a field, it will show, and you will find really cool pathways that not only help in that situation, but help in the future. And so I've always loved limitation just because it breeds... Well, it genuinely breeds creativity. Any of the favorite, like Jurassic Park or like Star Wars or whatever, they didn't have endless options. So they had to find ways to make things cool, and they did. They did make it look cool. Sometimes you don't, but most of the time.
Well, I was gonna say, like, especially like the early Star Wars or whatnot. Like, wasn't the lightsaber alone just a bunch of junk that they just put together and then just spray painted like silver and whatnot? And it's now like one of the most
they had to have camera film. It was this reflective camera material that would shine, and then they had to overlay it with color by like actually splicing the film stuff. It was because they didn't have a fucking light beam. They didn't have any way to do that, or blowing up the Death Star. They didn't have a giant set, so they just filled a little ball with fireworks and then blew it up and slow-moed it so that it looked a little bit more intense.
Yeah, and it's and especially like the first original trilogy, people still hold that one near and dear compared to some of the later ones that came afterwards. Like people are coming around when it comes to the prequel series, and the new trilogy is very decisive. People are very hit and miss when it comes to the series and whatnot. But like that original trilogy, people still hold that like it's God at this point. All right, especially with the limitations they were able to have.
Yeah, and it's really cool. I love what you can do with limitation. Even, and I'm not going to start on a tangent because I know I'll get into it. But with its movies, its video games, the GameCube era stuff like that, PS2, they had so much limitation, but were able to do so much in that box, and it was great, and it spawned a lot of things that inspired a bunch of people. It just looks really cool, and you go, damn, how'd they do that? And I'm like, well, we found a way. I want to shout out one thing. This is unorthodox, that has nothing to do with me, but there is a person online right now. If you are aware of the gaming children's program, well, I guess I don't want to say children's, but a beginner program of coding, it's called Scratch.
Okay.
Somebody is recreating Minecraft in the Scratch. Now, normally Scratch is for like a side scroll, like whatever.
Right.
And it's made out of these little like bubbles, if you will. And so they have been building all of the mechanics of Minecraft. They have the crafting, they have enchanting, they have brewing, they have etc. And it's 3D, you move around. And somebody realized Scratch has a 5 megabyte limit. 5 megabyte limit for it to be able to run on the website. So what they've been doing internally is creating a system where most of the code are in images, like a big image, and then it scans the image and reads that out as code so it can go excess past the 5 megabyte limit without having a bunch of coding inside. Okay. And that's insane to like process the coding on images so it stays within 5 megabytes of limit. Is wild, and still have the nether, the overworld, the end. They have like It's ridiculous.
It's insane. I mean, I was thinking like on a more like historical level when it comes to like limitations in video games or whatnot. One of the most iconic horror series of all time, Silent Hill. The reason why there is a fog is because the render distance that they had was so shit, so they hit it with the fog, and now that is one of the most iconic elements when it comes to any Silent Hill game.
Yeah.
More than anything else.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful what can be spawned just because you can't do something else.
Yep.
So trying to corner that and it creates something so iconic accidentally, just on a whim, I think is monumental to creativity. And that's why I think indie games are popping off more than AAA are.
Yeah.
Because people can see there's more creativity being brewed when it's a solo dev or it's a small team versus the AAAs. Not that they're all misses, but like they have limitless opportunities, so they do everything and make it big and grandeur, and then it ends up sometimes feeling empty.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
it's huge. It's huge.
I was gonna say, last little bit when it comes to this stage. I mean, I was thinking of, like, for example, like this past like year alone, when you think about games, like 3 of the biggest games of all time came from indie devs: Lethal Company, Repo, and Helldivers 2. They came from small independent ones, and especially with like Helldivers 2, like they were using a program that's been like outdated since like the mid 2010s to make that game, and yet they still made it work and made it like one of the most like hyped experiences for anyone that hops in that game more than anything else. Like it's
I'll shout out Balatro as well.
Yes, Balatro,
solo
absolutely.
Dev, so good.
Yeah.
Even like I know people whatever, but like Among Us as well. Such a simple little thing, just like takes it so far. And the other one that came around the same time as Lethal Company, I can't remember what it was called. Feel so bad for not remembering. I was actually just about to shout it out. I don't remember.
Ozzy, do you remember what the game was about?
But it says it's like a Lethal Company, but you filmed.
Content warning. That's what it's called.
Content warning. Yes, I wish that those devs are working on other stuff, so that game is no longer updated. But like that one was like really cool.
That was a fun one. That was a fun one that I wish got like because it just dropped randomly on April Fool's Day. I remember that. But it's like, I wish it got just like a little bit more love. There was a lot of love when it came out, but I wish it got just like a little bit more love more than anything else.
I expect they might come back to it, but like I just want to shout out all those games because they're really good.
Oh, yeah,
and the Big Walk as well. That one's coming out soon.
That one's coming out soon. Also, I can't believe I did not remember this one or whatnot. The fishing game that came out not too long ago. Or
web fishing. Yes, shout out web fishing.
Oh my god, that one! I remember, especially whenever that did drop. Like me and my friends were all playing that like just all the time and getting all the weird stuff, doing like the mystery fish or whatnot, or finding a way to go into the void and all that kind of stuff like that.
Yeah.
So fun, so fun. I mean, like
shout out those indie games.
It's cool that like that kind of mentality, especially that kind of limitations, you're bringing that with you into the Sean Poole universe, or like I like to affectionately call it the something verse. You have to go with
the something verse.
Yeah, the something verse. Because like especially talk about like I have something here, something else. You had the third one that you were thinking, which I would personally call it. There's got to be something here. Like
there's gotta be something here.
Because especially you're talking about how dark, like that desperation is like there's gotta be something here. Like that desperation.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, but like having the something verse like out there or whatnot with what you're doing or whatnot, like it's really cool to know that like that those elements are what you're gonna be incorporating, not just in short term with like the Cannonball music video and what maybe next, but like eventually seeing the potential long term that could have and like all the different characters, like kind of what you were teasing with DJ Cat and Emo Cat. I imagine they're gonna be part of the something verse as well. Different
there's a lot of aspects and elements. Something to sort of prep people with the Sean Poole universe, something verse. I like that. I like something verse.
Yeah. Take it, copyright it, market it. It's all yours, buddy.
Something verse is really cool. We hadn't come up with a name for it just yet. That's why it's because it's not one single entity. It's spread off across, if we do side videos or whatever. So we're like, what the hell do we call this thing?
Right.
But something to note, Lamau, is when it comes to albums like Club Pocket, for example, so all the Club, Darkness, whatever, that one was inspired by like LimeWire MP3s you would download that would be really just dog water quality. But the song really came through, and the low end still came through, even though like whatever, but it was just like crunchy.
That crunch.
So that was the whole driving force of Club Pocket. But that won't be the next record. And not in just like a normal sense. Like when a record or a vibe is being worked on, I'll try and see it to its fullest potential, because aside from maybe one song or so, you're not seeing that era again. Right. You know, that album, you've seen it. We're going to run that. And then the next one's going to come through. And so if you want to kind of get a more of a taste of Club Pocket again, if we do live shows, you know what I mean?
There you go.
Hear them live. But the next record where we go full force, because I'm a maniac. I'm a psycho when it comes to music. And I'll put out the record, and then I'll be like, I'm 5 songs deep into the next one. I'm working on the next one. I've tried to be, and I think I've been consistent, even though it's not all on Sean Poole. I've released at least an album a year. So it's been an album every year.
Right.
Because I just make so much stuff. Or at least a release. That might change when things get more complicated and complex. I might not be able to do a full album every year. Right. There will at least be an EP or some. Sean Poole will not be quiet for a whole year or two. You know, I don't think that will ever happen, because I'm always busy and people are always like, "When's that coming out?" And I'm like, "Well, okay, I might as well put it out in some capacity."
No, absolutely.
But yeah, it's interesting. I like that something verse though. I am gonna
like I said, like I said, take it. It's yours. All right. I put it out there because I wanted you to use it, because I thought it'd be something catchy to kind of keep in the back of the mind. You know, like, what do we call this?
That's
place?
cute. I like that.
There you go. I mean, like, especially hearing like how much you're really going all in when it comes to the something verse in general, and just seeing like what you could potentially do with that. Like, I imagine you're already pretty busy when it comes to that, but on top of that, you found a way to also be busy in other aspects of art, mainly when it comes to like animation and indie animation, especially with this place called the Indie Sphere that you've more or less like provided a place for. What was it about indie animation that got you involved with that, and why did you decide to go forth and make a place called the Indie Sphere to kind of bring some of these indie animated projects together, especially kind of maybe the lesser known ones, people that may not know a whole lot about them in the first place?
Well, I'll clarify something off rip.
Okay.
So the Indie Sphere wasn't created by me.
Okay.
So the Indie Sphere was created by a friend of mine named Meng.
Yep.
They put it together, and it's still interesting how I got involved.
Right.
Because I have not been an indie animator or in making a bunch of indie projects. You could count the virtual band as dabbling in that with like the illustrated characters, and I did all the graphic work of that. So I would take Seaborg's drawings and I would put them in real environments and then try and mesh them with the scenery.
Right.
And then did the music and etc. But I wasn't necessarily in the indie animation community because I wasn't an indie animator, so it made sense. But I 7 years ago met a very, very, very nice group of friends, and we've been friends for the full 7 years.
Nice.
We refer to ourselves as the Treehouse.
Oh,
so
cool.
Shout out Treehouse. They'll probably watch this.
I hope they are. They better be. And if you are,
they better be. I'm gonna find out. If you're not watching this, I'm gonna find out.
I will look for you, and I will be disappointed in you.
I will find you. I will ask you about elements of it, but make sure. No, I'm just 7 years ago we met on such a whim.
Okay.
Such a whim. I'll try and make it fast. This whim, but Gorillaz had a new album coming out, the Now.
Right.
And the track "Humility" had just dropped, and the music video dropped, and I was so excited about it. And I had Discord installed on my computer for a while. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know how it worked. I didn't understand. It was like 2018. Yep. And I didn't know. I had dabbled with it in 2017. But I didn't understand. I went into servers and they were like, I don't know. I didn't get it. And so I stepped away and came back 2018. So I was like, I wonder if there's a Gorillaz Discord server. And there wasn't an official one because Discord wasn't big yet. But there was the Gorillaz fan Discord, whatever. It was like this old server, and I joined in there, and I met some. I how do I explain this? I joined in when somebody was doing a Murdoch impression.
Oh, nice.
And they were like one of the admins, and I heard it, and I was like, that doesn't sound much like Murdoch. And so I had met somebody in there for a little bit, and I was talking to them. I was like, I don't know why I feel like I could do it. I feel like I could do a Murdoch. And so at the time, I was like, I don't know where this bout of confidence came from, but I was like, everybody get in the VC because I'm the real deal. Which I was like so like small and shrimpy at that time that I don't understand where that came from. But maybe my friend was pretty gassing me up. But like we got people in. Funny story, I had a different Discord account and it I muted and then I went to unmute and it wouldn't unmute, which was probably just I needed to refresh Discord, but I didn't know Discord at that time, so I thought my account broke. So I signed out, I made a new account, came back, and then was like, all right, I'm back. I didn't want to miss. I got everybody in the VC and I couldn't unmute. So I was like, I gotta come back. Okay, this is me. I was the guy who was just this is a new account, and that's been my account since.
Don't you just love the technical wonders that is Discord sometimes?
They evolved and never left. The funny little quirks of this program never left.
Oh,
but
fantastic.
it was a bunch of people in there, and then essentially it was a whole thing. It whittled down, and it was just a few of us. And then we would always join in, and it would whittle down to just us repeatedly. I came up with a character. They enjoyed it. We made a server about that character. That server ate shit and died and exploded.
Valid.
And then we made our own server together and have had that ever since. And like those people, a lot of those, they were artists. You know, they are artists still, but at that time and now, artists. And they found their ways into the indie animation sphere. And then because they liked the way I wrote stuff and I wrote stories and et cetera, they kind of dragged me along to like help with projects. So I found myself sort of worming in through knowing them, and then I'd meet other people. Through Seaborg I met Meg, and from there I was involved with a few more projects, and then met with their friends who are all artists and animators as well. And then it just kind of wormed through, and I've always really enjoyed the indie animation community because there isn't much of one for the music side of things. It's everyone's kind of their own lone wolf. It's hard to get collaborations 'cause a lot of people, no matter what size, are very like high and mighty or solo, and they don't want to work with other people. And it can be really hard to get with people. So there's no like sense of a connection, but there's a lot of pockets for indie animation, and people try, whether they mean it or not, there's drama, but they try and like provide platforms for other people and gas each other's projects up, get involved, connect, post about each other, meet and are friends together, have group chats, etc. There's this sense of a spread of community. And I've always really enjoyed that, and I cherish that. So I weaseled my way in, and I was like, how can I be a part of this? Because I want to be a part of this community. And when Meg decided to kind of step down from doing the indie sphere to do other things, they gave it to me because of like our history and things that they trusted me with it. And I'm really appreciative of that. And I've been appreciative of what even just her solo has done for getting me in with like midmortis, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a second here.
I was gonna,
yeah. So, but I've been really grateful for all that. So it's just by, in a way, dumb luck, but knowing people and being friends with really great artists has allowed me to be a part of that environment and meet with those people. And I'm trying to continue to go in that realm and meet more people.
Yeah, Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Especially with the community that's kind of more or less there in the indie sphere, especially. And I love that it started with like just this fun group of friends, especially fans of gorillas.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, look, trust me, I have my own love and admiration. All right, my dad like raised me on freaking Dare and 192000 and like, the classics, obviously, and like stuff like that.
Yeah,
and I still listen to them to this day. With the wide range, and especially with like how they've been able to like evolve as
Damon
artists.
Albarn is a hero of mine for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, but like what started as that has evolved into this thing to where you now have like hundreds of people like really showcasing like what they have when it comes to indie projects or whatnot, and like trying to grow as this community that I wouldn't say you weaseled your way, because it's not like you just like randomly show up and be like, hey, this random guy is cool, let's have him run this stuff. Like, no, like you've been part of this friend group for ages, and they have a lot of faith and trust in you. I mean, you kind of mentioned it, but especially when you were talking about Meng and the way you've been able to help them, especially with what you were talking about, which is the project that you not only are part of, but you have a major hand in, and that is midmortis.
midmortis, hey.
Now, for people that have no idea what in the world I'm even talking about in the first place, how would you describe midmortis?
midmortis is a animated series, spearheaded and created by Meng, and it's like a ghost hunting show, with this trio, on your classic ragtag trio. It's this guy, this kid, and a ghost. And
very classic, very traditional little trio right there, especially when it comes to the
classic little trio. But it's more oriented to like teen to adult.
Right.
They swear sometimes. So
swearing in this Christian indie animation server? How fucking dare you?
I know. What a fucking deal breaker.
I know, right?
Cut the interview now.
This has been fantastic. You have a wonderful what?
But no, it's it's kind of like a little silly thing. But we're working on episode 1 right now, the pilot, if you will.
Right.
We've been working on it for a hot minute. But yeah, it's like a little comedy thing where they kind of hunt down ghosts. Yeah. Trio of people hunt down ghosts. Be silly about it.
And you're not just involved like just offhand. You are in fact one of the directors, writers, and a voice actor for this incredible project more than anything else. How did you even get involved in the first place? Like I know that you and Meg are good friends or whatnot, but like it's one thing to be friends, it's another thing to have your friend be like, hey, want to help me out?
Yeah. So we met through Seaborg a long time ago, a few years ago. And they wanted me actually to voice act for a different project.
Okay.
And then they wanted kind of a deep voice. And I don't know if you can tell, I'm not a deep voice. So I was like, I don't know if I can do this.
No, I'm joking.
I'm all the way up here. So I was like, I don't have like a deep voice. I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. And I was like, well, shucks. Right, there it goes. So then they kind of talked with me again about midmortis. They were kind of figuring out the voices for the characters. And so they wanted me to be the character of Phoebus. And I was like, okay, well, I'll try something. So I tried something kind of gravelly and in that vein of what I kind of felt the character would be. Because he's a little bit of a curmudgeon. He's a little bit of like a grump in a way. I was like, oh, he'd be kind of like, ugh, Mm-hmm. So he'd like talk like this, somewhere in that range. And then they liked it. And so I was like, okay. So I got on the project as just a voice actor.
Right.
Now, this is what I'm talking about where I like to weasel my way and crawl into the cracks of projects because I was given the script at the time. And I was like, I have some ideas maybe for the script. And I was like, and they were like, well, they knew that I dabbled a lot in dialogue.
Right. It's not like you were just like, obviously, like, it's a good thing that you were friends with them for like years and such beforehand, because if you were just like someone new that they had just brought in, and then the actor's like, I have some notes, they probably would have been like, yeah, we're gonna go a different direction.
Yeah. I'm glad that I had that backing, because I did feel like I was like, oh, well, I had some ideas for the notes, but they were like, okay. And then, so I switched some things around. Obviously not too much,
right?
Because they had already a pretty set structure for the pilot. So the writing is not like mostly me. I didn't change like a whole bunch of things, but I worked on some dialogue aspects and changing all that initially. So I was voice acting, and then I was doing some dialogue writing. And then I ended up working on a little bit of story beats, right? Because then they showed me a storyboard, and they were like, what are your thoughts on this? And then I moved some things around with storyboard, and then voice acting came in, and they knew that I had been doing like voices and stuff for a while. So I ended up being director at that point with voice acting, and then I ended up being like with storyboarding and writing. And then something that isn't documented necessarily yet because it hasn't come out yet, right. I'm also doing all of the audio engineering for the pilot.
Right.
So I took all the dialogue, tried to fix it up as best as I can, and move it around and timing and all of that. So I do the audio, I've done script writing, I've done directing for promos and stuff that are going to be made, and I voice act as the main character. So these are just aspects that just kind of came one after another when things were kind of slid in front of me and asked, and I was like, okay, well, I'll get into this. And then there were some team stuff that happened over the past year that initially we were kind of like scrambling at one point to like figure out how to, when you're a small team, it's your first project everybody's working on, you don't know how everything works entirely.
Right.
So you need all hands on deck to figure out when problems arise. And so I kind of ended up having to step up in certain points, and then that got me the director role, and
and here we are.
And here we are. So I just kind of crawl in a little bit further because I enjoy when I'm put on a project that it does the best that it can. If I see potential in something and I think that I can do something to help it, I will try and offer. I won't force my way in,
right.
But I'll try and offer and be like, hey, I have this idea. Would you be willing to kind of communicate on this and see what I can do to help something I'm interested in?
Yeah. No,
and so that's always been the mission when I'm involved on a project. So that's how I went from voice actor to fucking involved in everything on the damn show.
You went from voice actor to Swiss Army knife of midmortis more than anything else.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's really cool. And I imagine, like, especially for such a unique experience that you've had with this, in fact that, I don't know how many other shows you've had a hand into where, like, this has been this not really the same experience, but a very similar experience of just kind of being on it, and then all of a sudden you have your hands in all sorts of different aspects of it. But I mean, like,
yeah, this was the first like actual show that I've been like fully involved, like little friends projects and stuff that I've done. However, since midmortis, there have been now a couple more instances of me being hired on or something simple. And then I'm working on a bit more than that now.
I mean, I imagine that's probably a side product of, also being part of the indie sphere as well, and kind of being able to be there. Especially when people need help, you can be like, oh yeah, I'll be more than happy to help. And then next thing you know, you're given like 20 additional roles on top of what you've been already given,
right?
Or anything else. Like, I imagine, like, not just with midmortis, but like especially with kind of the indie sphere as a whole. Like, since you really gotten yourself invested in the indie animation aspect in one form or fashion, like, it's got to be a very unique experience, especially compared to like some of the music stuff at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's good to step away from. I guess I can't speak for everybody. For me, it's good to step away sometimes from the main craft, because I mean, if you're just in one boat going, it'll become the system that repeats. And so I enjoy the fact that with indie animation and the indie sphere in general, I'm able to step out from just recording a song, writing it down, putting out an album. Now I can go and do audio work and figure out how I want dialogue to sound and environments to sound. And I can do directing work and be like, how do I think this should go? How should the pacing be? How should, we divvy out like sections of the animation, or where should we go with the next step? It's interesting and it's fun. And whenever I'm doing a project, whether it be music or whether it be directing stuff or some other secret evil third thing.
You didn't have to include the evil in there.
I meant good.
Okay,
really
sure, good. Okay. Anyways.
Whenever I'm doing that stuff, I like to be able to learn something new in it, which I think inherently comes with directing as well. But like when you are at some capacity ahead of something, you're not going to know everything off rip. You don't know every single section. I mean, otherwise you would do it solo.
Right. Exactly.
But like it's interesting to go in and see how animation works, how people handle that. It's interesting to go in and see how the scripting and storyboarding works out, and how you should go about that, and where your mind and somebody else who knows more about the craft connect. It's always, I love learning new things when it comes to a project, and I feel like if I'm not learning new things, the audience isn't getting something new either,
Yeah.
So it's a double-edged, I wouldn't say a sword because that makes it like but it's a good two-way street.
There you go.
Of figuring things out.
That way,
I've really enjoyed it.
That way, instead of that, it's now.
Yes, of course.
No, I mean, like, it's really cool to have that kind of diversity in different aspect, not just like as a person like deal with stuff, but as like an artist, and having that way to really express yourself in different forms. I mean, even taking one more step back, like thinking not just with the indie animation stuff, but the music stuff as well. Thinking about your art journey as a whole and how much you have been able to develop as an artist. Like, is it amazing, or is it wow, words. Is it amazing, or is it surreal to think about how much you have been able to develop as an artist and how much you've been able to produce and such?
Yes. Yes, it is. I keep around a lot of old stuff.
Not the guitar
you've
had for 9
years.
years.
Not the guitar. Got rid of that one. Got that one out of here. But I keep old like demos or like releases or projects that we worked on around, because in a way I like to cross-reference what I'm doing now, and I try and make sure it doesn't sound like what I was doing 10 years ago in a way. I like look back, and while sometimes, most of the time, you'll look back and you'll be like, yeesh, oh,
Brother,
It's good to have that kind of look through, and it is crazy because I feel like if you're just in your bubble going down your lane, I know a lot of artists, especially, that feel like they're plateauing, or they feel like they haven't changed how they work, or which from a outside perspective is insane.
Yeah.
Because they'll be like, I haven't changed at all. And I'm like, vastly different than you were even a year ago.
Yeah,
and like
absolutely.
getting better. But they're like, it's just, but you're in your own bubble. So I try as much as your own self can to step out, look, and be like, all right, where am I going? Where could I go? What could I do? And it's nice. It's good because especially in music, but when you're creative, the grind is long. It's long and it's difficult, and it's not always rewarding.
Of course.
In a certain grand sense. So making sure that you're still trekking along and making something new and refreshing as it goes, and still seeking out people to give a shit about it,
Yep.
is nice and it's good. So yes, it is surreal, and I look at it quite a bit. when I'm working on stuff, just because I want to make sure that I'm improving and going in a direction. Also, sometimes little me had an idea and it was actually kind of cool, and maybe I should bring that back. You know,
possibly. I mean, especially with how long you've really dedicated yourself to this, whether you realize it or not. Like,
yeah,
there's a lot of incredible stuff that, especially as you grow older and you go down this art journey a little bit more, you can look back and be like, I can see where we're going. Let's see if we can tweak it and add some more modern flair to it than what we were initially thinking, more than anything else.
Yeah.
It's always a unique pack to think about. I mean, in fact, speaking of kind of all those different ideas and all that different concepts or whatnot, what if we go above and beyond it, if I may, for this next question, and give you, Sean, more or less the dream scenario? Let's say I am Big Shot Mr. Moneybags. I come up to you and I'm like, look, Sean, we have seen just kind of the incredible stuff you have. There's something there, and we know that there is. You just need a little extra push, a little extra platform to get you to that point more than anything else. We have access to everyone and anyone in whatever industry possible, and more money there should be possible. We probably should be compensating some of the animators that are currently struggling right now, especially to get stuff like basic living wage, a place to live, health insurance, all that kind of stuff. # Stand with Animation forever and always. We'll focus on them in a little bit. We promise. We promise we are going to focus on them in a little bit. But right now we are focusing on you and you alone. If given this opportunity, what would be the dream Sean Poole project?
A dream Sean Poole project?
Yes.
Gosh, there would be a million.
Yeah.
There would be 1 million things that I would do. Oh man. I feel like I can already, if the when the treehouse is watching this, right? Mm-hmm. They're screaming at me all the projects that I said I'll do at some point. This might be a curveball. Okay. Because, I mean, for the long run, if that dream person is sticking with me, I've got music videos. I got the something verse, Yep. We got all that. But there's been, I'd say it's one of 2 ideas, but I'd say, I don't know, coin flip on whichever one you want to do.
Okay.
A movie.
Okay.
There's a movie that I've been wanting to do. There's technically been 2, and the treehouse will yell at me about both of them. But so I have to represent both of them, or somebody's gonna be mad.
Okay.
It would either be there's this house movie, where it's essentially, not that this is entirely new,
right,
of a concept, but a horror movie in which this couple are searching for a new home, and they go to a for sale house, and it's out in this field, and they go to this house, they go in, they're checking it out, right, and they not only can't leave, right, but there ends up being kind of layers. For example, if you go out through a window, you go in through the other side window, right?
Okay.
You leave through the front door, you're in through the back door. So if you manage to get outside and you run towards the road and down the gravel path, you run up the gravel path the other way. Right? So it's this looping thing. And there are monsters in it, right? But the monsters are like themselves over years and years and years. So there's like a point in time where they're trying to get out with an older version of themselves. And there's only one monster that isn't them. And this was suggested, mentioned to my friend Seaborg.
Okay.
Was the Mirror Man.
Interesting.
And he is a very, very, very tall creature. When he comes through a doorway, he has to kind of like duck through and like come through up like that. And he has a briefcase and he's in a suit, but his face completely flat with the mirror thing. And he offers you a choice. If you need something, like you need binoculars, you need pliers, something to get out, right? They offer you 2 slots in the briefcase. And that is one, that is the thing that you wanted. And one is something that you currently have on you that you have to give up.
Okay.
You have to give up parts of your identity, parts of you, who you are, to get these items. You don't have to take it. He's not necessarily evil. He gives you the option. If you need that thing and you really think you need it, he'll offer it, but you lose yourself. And I've always really enjoyed that. There's like a hallway scene that started the whole thing, but it might be a little bit yucky for the podcast.
I mean, I was going to say, I remember this vaguely. There was like some movie that at least the premise started similar to that. Is like this couple, they meet this realtor and they go visit this house, but then whenever they get to the house, like, they're stuck in this house and there's like a child that they have to raise in the house or whatnot. Like, like the start, I think it started like Jesse Eisenberg, if I remember correctly. But like I said, like at least the start of it, like, okay, I think I kind of know what you're talking about, but then like the more you talked about with like the different elements, like especially like, you know, the what are you willing to give up in order to potentially get out of here, only to be stuck in that same place fighting with like the older or younger versions of yourself or whatnot, and like what you're willing to do. Like that is a very interesting concept, if not a movie, at least like a video game or whatnot, kind of like a Resident
I've always
Evil,
wanted an adaptation,
like a Resident Evil-esque kind of, you know, thing when it comes to that more than anything else.
Yeah. There was that, and then I'll mention very lightly for the Treehouse, the Cadaver Project, which was my take on Frankenstein. And it was the idea of this scientist and then this homeless girl that they kind of stayed out to this windmill on a hill. And the idea is that he wants to and has been experimenting to bring back the dead for the army. Okay. And it's like in a weird kind of not real time period of like the 30s and 40s. And he wants to be able to reanimate human pieces of like the best of people to then send out for war, so they don't have to send people out.
Right.
But they still have to use pieces of dead people to,
obviously,
you know, send them out. But they don't have to worry about the moral implications of it being a person who has to come home. You know, if they get blown up, well, we'll just build a new one, you know? But she gets into, it's mostly kind of on her, the assistant, if you will.
Yeah, the Igor in the situation.
And it's, but it's less about the monster and about everything that goes into making the monster. She has to go dig graves, and then initially she was just finding like little whatever, but then she had to find more notable people because the parts were not good enough. So she had to go out, and then she had to, because the parts were not doing as well, she eventually has to kill for them. Okay. So she never thought she would get into this like deep of whatever. She was already kind of scummy on the street as it is. She was like a thief, but she wasn't doing this stuff.
Especially whenever you're homeless, like you gotta do anything you can to survive.
Yeah, so like this was, you know, she was doing all this and she gets in a run-in. There's like a side thing going on with the police, but it culminates. One of my favorite things of it was she gets really close to a detective. And the detective doesn't know necessarily that it's her that's doing it. Right. But eventually they do. They kind of meet the understanding that whatever. And she's been mistreated by the professor for a while. And so she's leaning into kind of actually bringing the detective to him to like get it, and then does the whole 9 yards, leads him up to where they live and chickens out and kills him. And but the detective has an assistant, so then it goes on to him, who's kind of undertrained to like figure out where to go from here. Right. And then there's stuff that follows from there. But I've always loved that thing where it's like you lead up and you're really kind of rooting for her, but she kills him anyway and then continues on because, I don't know, whether it's time dedication or in too deep, and this doesn't really seem like a road out, you know, like I've always loved that.
Especially like you said with like the homeless aspect of like, well, if things get fucked up, what's going to happen to me? Yeah, more than anything. Yeah. So I got to be going back on the streets. So am I going to have to struggle to survive? Like, at least with, you know, the scientist guy, like, yeah, I got to deal with this disgusting stuff, but I have a roof over my head and I'm fed, like, more than anything else. So,
yeah.
Like, it may not be much, but
it's,
yeah.
it's got those layers that I really enjoy of like making Frankenstein not about the monster. The monster does come in obviously later,
yeah.
but it's mostly about her. Her name was Idas,
Okay.
and it was. I've always wanted to do that one, but I wanted it to be a book. But I hate writing chapters, so maybe one day.
I'll say maybe at the very least like a graphic novel.
Yeah, I could do something like that.
Yeah.
I feel like it could be a movie. It could even be a show. I want it to be adapted some way, somehow, and I'll find a way to do it. But I feel like it deserves a novelization at some point because I think there's something about reading that next line and you're like,
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean,
that I've always enjoyed.
Both those projects would be incredible if brought to reality more than anything else. And like, you know what, honestly, like Mr. Moneybags Hurricane is like, you know what, money for both. Make them both happen.
I had to shout them both out. The Treehouse would have been upset if one of them was left out.
Right.
So those are the two projects.
But sadly, we have to come down from the dream scenario. We got to get back to reality. And I'll ask the ever so generic question. Where do you hope to see yourself in, say, 5 to 10 years from now?
Doing way more than I am now.
There you go.
I hope to see live shows. I want to do more live shows. I want to be doing live shows. And I want them to be cool. We already have drawn up the idea of stage design.
Yeah.
Because I think I've always loved those shows that have a set design.
Absolutely.
Even in the simplest way. So we have a way to do it that won't break the bank. But it'll be cool.
Absolutely. No, I was going to say you said that, and my first thought is, so earlier this year, I actually went to my first concert as an adult, I should say.
Yeah.
I went to see Tyler, the Creator's Chromacopia tour.
Oh, nice.
Yes, and the way that the set, like, cause at least like there's technically like 2 stages or whatnot. There's like because the bottom floor there's no seats or whatnot. It's like all standing room more or less. But there's like a square, like almost like a DJ table set stage or whatnot. And then there's like this giant wall of crates, because if you know from the Chromacopia stuff, like one of the major elements of it was like these like storage crates or storage, containers or whatnot.
Yeah.
And so, like, the opening acts, they were on, like, the little center stage. But then, when Tyler started or whatnot, like, the first song opens up, Saint Chroma, which starts off with, like, a voiceover. And then whenever the music really starts coming in, the middle of the storage containers slowly eases open, and you see him, like, stomping in tune with it more than anything else. And, like, there was a point to where, like, there was a bridge that came down and it led him from that stage over to that little center part where there was, like, these tarps that he projected, like, a house onto it or whatnot. And it went down, and you got this, like, basically living room with like a record player in the middle, and that's how he like transitioned to like different albums in his discography or whatnot, like putting the record down, then performing some of the songs from it. Like, there was some cool designs with that tour, with that stage.
Yeah. Tyler, the Creator, I think it was Coachella.
I believe so.
The performance he did with Coachella when he exploded out of the RV. Yes. I loved that so much.
I don't remember if it was Coachella or if it was Camp Flog Gnaw, the festival that he hosts.
Yeah, it was one of those two.
It was one of those two, but yeah, the one where it's just like, it's very unassuming, and then you just see him being ziplined like through an RV that just explodes.
Yeah, that big explosion. It's so good. He has that whole intro video where he's like, I'm cooking and shit in here and stuff like that, and it's like, I love that. I love that setup.
Tyler has always been one of my favorites, like on so many different levels, but especially if you see like one of his live shows or whatnot, it's so worth it. It is absolutely worth it.
I got to see 21 Pilots here in Columbus. And I'm going to shout out 21 Pilots because they've been a very big inspiration for the past couple of years.
Oh, nice.
They have lore. I don't know if you're aware of that.
I'm vaguely aware of it, especially seeing, because I was a big fan of them when they first came out, and like the first 2 albums that they were like big with or whatnot. I know like there was a good bit of lore, especially when it comes to like the music videos and stuff more than anything else. But
yeah. They've had 10 years of lore, and it's the final album of the lore is coming out in September.
Oh wow!
And so they're finally concluding that whole storyline. And when I saw them live, while they don't have like a bunch of set designs, it's mainly the drums and then the piano and then etc. And they have the 2 mini stages out in the pit. But they have a really cool section in the middle where the character is called Torchbearer.
Okay.
Was Josh Dunn's character. Will come down from the crowd holding the torch and the bandito clothing. And you'll come down to this platform, and then Tyler's character Clancy will take the rebel jacket that Torchbearer is wearing or holding, and then he'll put it on. They walk over to the stage, and then a big tarp that's been there the whole time, but you don't really notice, falls. And then the giant buildings of the concrete city Dima are on stage as these inflatables that are really like sturdy.
Yeah.
They're so it does this big orchestral as it like falls down, and then the Dima structure is revealed. And then it starts to burn. The fire comes across the stage as it transitions into the opening bass notes of Navigating.
Okay.
And then the light shows are incredible there, but that was already amazing to see in person.
Right.
But then they make lore happen in the shows.
Right.
So at the latest show, something that's been happening supposedly in the lore, for the clickies give me, Tyler is becoming... The evil ones that kind of run Dima are called bishops.
Okay.
And so he's been kind of going against them and trying to take down the bishops and et cetera. I can't explain the whole lore.
Right.
I would recommend looking into it.
Okay.
There's a video that they upload called I Am Clancy that kind of runs through what the basics of the lore are.
Okay.
But he's becoming a bishop. And so throughout the shows, he's started to not take the jacket very quickly. Torchbearer will come up and he hesitates for longer, looking through, and eventually not looking at Torchbearer at all. Something in the lore is that the bishops can't see yellow, and the banditos wear yellow.
Okay.
So to him, he was getting more and more invisible, so he couldn't see Torchbearer. So at the last show, that was crazy to see. Torchbearer comes up, Clancy looks out, he's kind of like fidgeting, looking out, and presumably doesn't see Josh, so he leaves without taking the jacket. And then disappears into the dark, and then Torchbearer is left on stage alone to watch the Dima towers burn, with Clancy not there anymore. Oh, wow. And it was like, oh my God, goosebumps right now. It was really cool.
I always love when artists like put so much thought and time into like stage sets and lore and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like for I don't know why I thought of this band. This will be the last one I bring up before we get to the tail end of the podcast and whatnot. But have you ever seen like this is more pop band, obviously more than anything. But have you ever seen an AJR show or whatnot?
There's a lot of crossover in 21 Pilots AJR. I haven't checked out AJR, but I know that they have some intricacies.
I will say at least their most recent 2 albums have been the ones that I enjoy the most. I mainly got into it because a buddy of mine, Tay Draws, they're a huge fan of them. But I will say if you ever see like footage from like one of their concerts or whatnot, like it's insane the like design because they try to go like over the top and they try to like pop themselves like. There's one moment to where like there's a song, I forget what the exact song is called, but like there's a moment to where the lead singer is in the crowd on like the top floor, like at the balcony of the crowd, and it's like the first line, Steve, I think the song's called like Steve's Coming to London or something like that, but it's like Steve's coming to London. And he goes, what the hell? And then as soon as he says that, he has to run from the top balcony out to the backstage, like out to the backstage, get on an elevator, go all the way down and get onto the stage. He has like a minute and a half to run from there all the way back on the stage to get back in with the part that he was supposed to be in or whatnot. It's so insane. Like, so yeah.
I'll one last piggyback because I have to, because the parallels are crazy. Mm-hmm. So I think you might, if you fuck with AJR a bit, I think you'd mess with 21 Pilots.
Oh yeah, I trust me, I don't disregard it. It's just been a minute since I've really bumped their stuff. It's one of those first few
I would recommend, if you're getting back into it, Trench, the album of Trench. Listen to that and listen to the album of Clancy, but the Trench for sure. Trench is an amazing album. Then you can divvy out however you want to, but Trench starts the proper. Technically, Blurryface does, but Trench officially starts the lore.
Okay.
Blurryface kind of sets it up, but at the time it wasn't going to be a whole thing. At their live shows at Car Radio, which I'm sure you're familiar with, they they do this thing where he's like on stage, he's playing the piano, right?
Yep.
And they do the little breakdown where it's like din, 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 right? He gets up from the piano, he looks into the camera like that, steps over, drops down, the lights go black, and then a spotlight comes on, and he's all the way across the stadium.
Oh wow!
Appeared somewhere, and so he stops there, and he like looks out over to the audience and everything. This is like the end of the song, so then he picks back up and does the last verses, and then when he does the now I'll just sit in silence, he holds on the sit and then rips the mask off.
Okay.
So to show that it's him. And so they have the teleportation trick at every show. And it's not like a minute between. They shut down the lights. There he is across the stadium.
So one of them's got to be a fake, right? Like there's no way that they do like that. That's like
it's crazy.
That's insane.
It's nuts.
Now it makes me wonder which one. I guess the one that was playing the piano was the fake at one point. Like there's a good way to like. There's got to be something.
Yeah, he drops down. All the stage lights turns off. He's across the stadium somewhere else in the crowd. Yeah. And then he's just there. So it's like, that's insane.
That is.
It's such a cool little trick, and it's like the third track in the set list. So it's they've got plenty more to go from little treats like that. It's really awesome.
Oh my goodness. As we start to wind down the interview, I just got one last question I want to ask. Obviously, you are deeply entrenched in art. If nothing else, the past 10 minutes of our conversation alone definitely tells that. But the entirety of the, I'm going to say like probably 2 hours since we've been talking, or however long we've been talking, definitely tells that. How important is art, not just for you, but for the world as a whole?
I think, not to sound like silly or like some real soapbox thing, but in a way, it's more important than anything else. Because it's like the one thing that I feel like if we went to another planet or another planet came here, they have their own form of art. And so it will transcend. I couldn't conceive your language. I have no way of communicating with you. But here's like a photograph, Here's like a painting, and you're like, it's actually kind of sick. You know what I mean? So I think art is more important than anything, because I can't tell you how many times you stumble upon a drawn artwork, or even in music, and it's a completely different language, it's a completely different culture, but it just doesn't matter in the moment. Like, it'll be a song that you can start to phonetically sing along to, but you don't know the language that it's sang in by heart, but it's a damn good song, so it sticks around in playlists or etc. Or you see like drawn artwork, and the person could, if I'm from America and they're from somewhere in Europe or in Africa or something where our language is not 100% the same level, and the culture is not, we're oceaned apart. None of that in the moment is like necessary to translate the art, right? You can look at it and be like, wow, that's really cool. So I think it transcends language, and it transcends knowledge in a way, because even as a child, you create things when you don't even know an inkling of the earth at all. And so you just start piecing things together in a creative way. So I think it's the most important thing. And so it's kind of silly when it's underplayed, but it's the most important thing.
I think that is wonderfully worded, if I do say so myself. Sean, that is all the questions I have for you today. I've already showered you with Lord knows how much praise at this point, but I'm gonna shower you with a little bit more, because it's my podcast. I do what the fuck I want. No, like ever since, like I said before, ever since you first reached out to me, I made sure to deep dive into your stuff, and I really enjoyed just how much of yourself you've been able to put out there more than anything else. Like it's not easy to express yourself in the first place, but especially to the way that you're able to find a way to not only express yourself, but really translate into a way to where a lot of people are able to do it. Like it's always admirable at the end of the day. It's something that I can't help but just love and appreciate, especially with some of the subject matter that you've established in some of your songs. But especially now to get the chance to sit down and chat with you and really get a full in-depth of like who you are as a person in this relatively speaking short amount of time. Like I can't help but truly like love and appreciate what you're doing more and more and more and more, not just with the music aspect. Like it's impressive what you're able to do with the music aspect first and foremost, like how much you've been able to go forth with it, how much time and thought and process has gone into each and every single one of those tracks. Like whether it was something that you were able to push out like really quickly because you were feeling a certain mentality in that moment, or something that took years to kind of stew until like the perfect moment came forth. Whether it be that, the indie animation aspect, whether it be the indie sphere, or with the projects you've been able to have a hand in and really help elevate each and every single project that you have a hand in one form or fashion. Like I just can't help but, like I said, just truly appreciate the fact that you're able to put yourself out there and be a tremendous help or a tremendous presence for anyone that gets a chance to know you, let alone consider you their friend. And I think at this point, like, if I don't consider you a friend, that's on me, you know, because I've I truly felt like in this short amount of time, like I've gotten a really good chance to know you a lot more and really get to connect with you. And I really do love and appreciate what you do, and I cannot wait for what's next, especially with the something verse. You know, I want to see what more comes out of that. I want to see the endless creative possibilities, especially whatever limitations are given to you. Like I can only imagine how creative and how insane it could potentially be. The long and the short of it, Sean, is thank you for what you do. Thank you for putting yourself out there, because especially with some of the stuff you've been able to put yourself out there with, I know it's not easy to put that out there. It's not the easiest to really be as vulnerable as you have been before. And I sincerely hope that, you know, I know I'm one of maybe few, but hopefully one of hundreds, thousands, even millions in the future, that every single step of the way you continue to grow and you continue to do incredible stuff. And I'm going to be rooting for you every single step of the way. So thank you, Sean.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to say real quick, thank you for this podcast, because I stumbled upon this through the indie sphere, and just being able to hear people's insights and dive into artists in the process is really nice. I'm a fan of interviews with musicians and with artists and creatives in general, especially ones that are on more of a personal conversation level than your run-of-the-mill iHeartRadio interview or something, you know? So I'm very appreciative of having somebody in the indie sphere, general creative sphere, who just wants to talk to people about what they do and bring that and show that to other people. And so that's one of the leading reasons I reached out, because I really wanted to be involved and talk and be on this show, because I found it really cool. I really enjoyed it. So thank you for everything that you do and everything that you said. Yeah. I appreciate it very well.
I appreciate all those kind words. Genuinely, thank you. But you don't got to butter me up, all right? We've already gone through the whole entire recording process. Like, we're here. This episode's coming out no matter what, all right? Now, if people want to know why I have been gushing about this incredible musician and all the different emotions and elements that go into their stuff, go ahead and plug your stuff for the people at home. Where can people find more about you?
You can find me on YouTube, I believe. YouTube, Spotify, all the streaming services. But right now we're focusing on the YouTube and the Spotify. So on Spotify it'd be Sean Poole. If it's hard to find because of Sean Paul, the other musician who's much bigger and been around for a long time, look up Sean Poole Club Pocket.
There you
and
go.
that will bring me up. And then on YouTube, you can do the youtube.com/user or whatever. It's at sspool_. And you can find me through there. So those are the two main means that you should keep an eye out for. Yeah. And I'm on Bandcamp under Sean Poole as well.
There you go. And don't worry, I'll be having links to all that and then some in the description below. So it'll be a lot easier for people not to get confused with Sean Paul, all right? I got you covered.
Yes, don't confuse Sean Paul. I will mention on the Bandcamp, we do little secret things in releases because with the current streaming age, you could just go on Spotify and listen to the album.
Right.
There isn't much of a push to just go out and buy the record on Bandcamp to get the files. But usually we'll have at least a bonus track when you buy the album. There could be concept art. I think Club Pocket has the slightly alternate versions of the cover art, and then it has an extra track as well, which is Face It, as its own solo track. So you can have that as a WAV file. So we always do extra material when you buy the record on Bandcamp to make it just a little bit more worth it to actually purchase the record.
And make sure that you can show a way to support Sean at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Do you have any final words before we sign off?
I was going to think of something like stupid.
Hey,
Stupid.
Floor is yours, my guy.
Hey, get it while it's good.
Get it while it's good. I think that's a good way of wording it. And with that, all I've left to say is for the people at home, if you can, please pay your artists.
Please.
Tell me what's wrong, tell me its parts in motion. Sing me a song, tell me your eyes can open. Show me it all, pick me up in the car you drove when you used to call. Show me it all.
Thank you so much for sticking around to the end. If this is your first time listening, I greatly do appreciate it. Like I said in the intro, ever since Sean more or less reached out to me about wanting to hop on the podcast, it's been really cool to really chat with him and really get to know him. And Sean, if you've gotten up to this point, thank you. Thank you for making yourself known and really putting yourself out there, not just with this podcast, but just with how you go about life. I don't really say this often, but I really do appreciate when people take the opportunity to actually reach out to me. I always say that I can't guarantee that I'll get to everyone, but I at least like to know maybe there's people that I haven't heard about beforehand, or I didn't know about their art beforehand, and so to be introduced to them, it really helps me out. But I mean, especially when it comes to Sean, how confident in their work that he seems to be more than anything else, and how much he wants to help out, genuinely just help out people. It's always something that I love and I aspire to, especially when it comes to wanting to give artists a name or provide a platform for artists that they may not have had otherwise. I mean, that's why I've been going about this bad boy for almost 5 years at this point. We're almost on 5 years. I just thought about that. Good Lord. I feel old. I feel old. But regardless, I appreciate when people do reach out. But I just appreciate more than anything else when they let their actions speak louder than words. And Sean is certainly one of those, where his actions when it comes to getting his name out there and also wanting to help out other people, especially in the indie sphere, it really shines bright. And I hope that other people take that from today's episode and put that back into their own artwork, into their own lives, more than anything else. If you take nothing else from this episode, take that. Take what I had just said. Let that love and that passion and that desire to help really shine bright. And let's bring this community up as a whole.